Hello, fellow homebrewers. JP here, and I want to introduce to you the brand new Brewbuilt X1 Conical Series available at More Beer. More Beer sells the highest standard in homebrewing equipment, and the Brewbuilt Conicals are just that. They're made from mirror-polished 304 stainless steel, and they come with loads of features that you and I have been looking for. They have a full 2-inch bottom dump valve, which will eliminate your clogging issues, while the sturdy base includes 4 reinforced legs, just like those big Pro tanks do. More Beer also carries the Brewbuilt line of options and add-ons like casters, pressure kits, and even external glycol chillers. So you can find out more about the new Brewbuilt X1 Conical Unitanks by going over to morebeer.com for detailed videos on the entire line of Brewbuilt Conicals. You can trust Brewbuilt with your next fermentation, and you can trust More Beer to find the right conical for you. Brewbuilt at morebeer.com.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the session. I'm your host, Justin Crosley, back in the studio once again. And I have not been in the studio in a while. The last shows we did were out on the road, which is where I like to be. So forgive me if there's a little learning curve tonight. So far, so good. And with me, my wonderful co-host, Teresa Pasuti, is here.
Yeah, I'm sad that I couldn't go on the road trip, but, you know, glad to be here.
I brought the beard along on that one.
I know, and I was thinking, you named it the Justin and the Beard.
Yes.
You could make, like, if we could all go together, it'd be Justin, the Beard, and the Beeve, because my maiden name is Beavers.
That's right, I forgot about that.
And my childhood nickname was the Beeve.
I love this.
So...
we could do beer shows and morning radio with that title.
Totally.
Justin the Beard and the Beeve.
That'll help finance the trip.
I love it. Well, and Teresa's also here participating in an event that we're doing, which is our topic of today's show. So with me today from Deep Liquid, all the way out of Australia, but really worldwide, Denim De Silva is here once again. Welcome back, Denim.
Hi, Justin. Good to be here.
And our friend, everybody's friend, the legendary Dick Cantwell is also hanging out.
Well, thanks. Everybody's friend? That gives me some pause.
Yeah, just everybody's friend. I don't know why. You've always been friendly to me and everyone around me, so maybe that's why I think that. So today we are talking about AI beer, artificial intelligence in beer, and we're gonna dive deep into that. So I'm not going to explain too much right now. There's no need. We'll get into it, and you'll learn all about how the Deep Liquid platform is helping connect brewers with consumers, with people like me. I'm not a brewer. I'm barely even a home brewer anymore. So, but I am. I don't know if beer connoisseur is the right word. Maybe I'm a beer critic. Maybe I'm somewhere in between. And so what we're going to talk about today is how, you know, my feedback can possibly better get to brewers so that they can make better beer. And before I describe our event, let me just get through a couple pieces of business. First of all, this show is brought to you today by More Beer. Every session we do is brought to you by More Beer. You can go to morebeer.com, check them out. I don't know if you, in your new brewery venture at your half barrel brewery, or do you have a 1 barrel?
1 barrel brewery. Yes.
Do you order direct to the home from More Beer yet?
Oh, I do.
Oh, you do?
I have many times.
I thought you might.
From all sorts of vendors. I mean, More Beer doesn't carry super technical stuff, but actually they have
they've grown into that too.
Array.
Yeah, they've grown into a little bit of everything. Go to morebeer.com and check them out. If you want to learn about all sorts of things they do, including their giveaways, check out their YouTube page because they're putting out all sorts of good content. They've got some podcasts now. So anyway, thank them for supporting this show as they always have. And then a couple other things I just want to mention too. The 21st Amendment, also a wonderful supporter of this show. And in fact, Sean is also participating in tonight's event. They're having their August Fest, which is happening August 26th. Why have Oktoberfest when you can have August Fest? It's down at this 21st Amendment San Leandro Brewery, and tickets are on sale now. You can go to 21st-amendment.com. It's August 26th from 12 to 8 p.m., and they've got all sorts of things happening. First of all, it's free admission and open to all ages. Then you just kind of upgrade when you want to do some VIP things or get some beer or get some food. But if you just want to go hang out and be a designated driver, bring out the kiddos, you can do all of that stuff at their 21st Amendment brewery. There's some collaborations that they're putting out that day from Fieldwork, Camino Brewing Company, Moonlight Brewing Company, speaking of legendary brewers, and Harmonic Brewing, and local brewing. So lots of different collaboration beers, as well as all the wonderful 21st Amendment beers, a couple of which we'll be tasting tonight. Go to 21st-amendment.com and get your tickets today if you want to do the beer stuff or the VIP events, or just show up on the 26th. And then, of course, support all of our sponsors, including Williams Brewing and Beersmith. Wonderful people who have been helping out this show for a long time. Okay, so back to our event, because we got a beer in our glass already. Now, we introduced this in short in another podcast back during SF Beer Week, I think it was. And the idea behind Deep Liquid is to provide a bridge between consumers and the brewers. And Denim, you're going to correct me at any time you want. In this case, with our event, we've got 5 different breweries involved to put a beer on here at the Hop Grenade. And then we've got coasters out all around the tap room with a QR code. And for each beer, you can scan the code and give your feedback on the beer. And then in short, the idea is the AI that Deep Liquid is creating takes that feedback and gives it back to the brewer with suggestions on how, I guess you could call it, how they might improve their beer, or at the very least, it's suggestions on what the consumers think of their beer. Maybe they want it a little more bitter, maybe they want it a little more clear, maybe they want a little more aromatics, and so on and so forth. And so at the end of this project, we're calling it AI Beer Week here at the Hop Grenade, so we're hoping to get you a bit more data than just tonight. The brewers, like Teresa, will get something back from Deep Liquid, which we'll let Denim get into the intricacies here. And then choose to use that feedback, maybe not use all of it, I don't know, to recreate the beer, and then hopefully bring it back here to the Hop Grenade. And I'm hoping some of our guests get to taste and go, oh, I suggested that. I wanted it to be more bitter, and now it is, or whatever it might be. Is that a good enough summary? What do you think?
Okay, so this is getting recorded, right? Because I'm going to use that. That was perfect. Okay. Seriously.
That's my understanding of it. It's not that complicated, I thought.
It is not that complicated. Yeah. And actually, I think that is almost the problem, in that as soon as you start talking about AI and machine learning, and I've been very lucky in that some of my partners, much smarter than me, literally So one of the guys who helped form this is the head of the Australian Institute of Machine Learning. So officially, Australia's #1 AI scientist.
Okay, yeah.
And the other, another person who helped, sort of created the idea and is an advisor, is the person who hired him, like one of the guys who heads up Amazon. So we have these really smart people, and everybody assumes this is super complex.
Yeah.
But it's not. It is, what it's doing is what we've done for millennia, which is listen to people and then make improvements based on input, right? Yeah. That's what we've done forever. That's what brewers have done forever. All we're doing is now scaling that. So it's not just the people that you have in your orbit, the people at your bar, but everyone. And we can also then say, okay, people in California are saying this, people in South Australia are saying this, people in Brisbane are saying this, and AI is really, really good at figuring out lots of data and those puzzles to say, okay, here, this is what you need to do. Whereas what we are good at doing, as the brewers are good at doing, is creating the best product, but with the limited data. So if you can expand that data and put it into a format that they understand, it's a powerful tool.
Right. So it does, again, it just kind of translates the information into a way that then the brewers can understand, and hopefully with tons of information.
Absolutely.
And so like you said, we're just doing it here tonight in this pretty small data set. But if the idea were, for example, it were on every single can of Crooked Lane that goes out into the world. This QR code was on every single can, and it just said, "Give us your feedback." You scan it, you get a simple interface. You might get tons and tons of data on every single beer you put out, and I think that's sort of more the idea behind it. We're we're in this sort of a rudimentary sample size here. But I have to admit one thing too before we go further, and then I want to get a little more of your background, Denham, because you are a brewer, right? We need to let people know.
Well, actually,
this is coming from the world of brewing.
Okay, yeah, it is coming. I should say I'm very careful. Say I'm not. I'm a brewer's lackey, right?
You're a brewery owner.
So yeah, I'm a brewery owner. So I, much like you, I believe, Justin, did a lot of home brewing, and some successfully, some not so. And my plan was to be the brewer. But as we started growing, there was so much to do, which I got people who are much better at brewing than I.
And that's the smart way to do things.
So, I didn't get to be the brewer ever.
Okay. Yeah. And how long's the brewery been around?
18 years.
Oh, wow.
So in Australia, that's a long time.
Yeah.
So I think I was discussing with Teresa, I was the 38th brewery in Australia. And now there must be 3,000. So, I started the South Australian Microbrewers Association. There was nothing there. There was 6 of us.
Also, what were you, 18 when you started this brewery? Doesn't he look like the young... He's such a healthy-looking person. How old were you when you started this brewery? Can I ask that?
33, 35.
You need to send me your diet. Whatever you're eating.
Good beer. Good beer.
It's just good beer.
Good beer.
Yeah, okay. Maybe it's because he wasn't brewing, there was less stress or something.
I don't know. It was investment banking before this.
Okay,
all right. So that doesn't really track.
Stress.
Yeah, that's... Okay, so you've been in the beer world for a long time.
Yeah.
And then here's where I just want to interject before we get into how you got into this. I'm a little embarrassed to admit, and I've been thinking about it more and more recently, that I've gotten involved in at least a minor way in this project because I'm pretty fascinated by it. I haven't even tried ChatGPT yet. I don't even have the stupid app on my phone. I've not used it for one thing.
Maybe we should do it right now.
We should have ChatGPT write the rest of my interview for us, right?
That generate some content.
I haven't even dabbled it. I've not tested it once. I have talked about it a lot. I have read about it a lot. I'm fascinated by it. I have no idea why I haven't punched a single sentence into that thing yet.
Oh, man.
Yet I'm here. I am because once you said beer, once I met you at Beer Week or something, I was like, now that's AI. I think I can get into. So, and I'm sure I could get into the ChatGPT too. I just don't know what to do with it. I don't know what I'm doing that would help.
The sky's the limit, Ben.
It really is. But this is where I think beer is actually better than ChatGPT because ChatGPT will and there's a lot of instances of this. It spits out complete and utter rubbish because it's being trained on everything that's on the internet, and I don't need to convince anyone that there's a lot of rubbish on the internet, right?
Yeah.
So, what we do though is we actually train this on proper input, right, from brewers and beer drinkers and also people in the industry. So our data is, so what we're training, what we're giving is actually based on not everything and not all the rubbish. It's facts. So yeah, but ChatGPT is amazing, and what it does is open up the people's eyes to, oh my gosh, this is coming. So I love ChatGPT because for about 4 years I felt like I was the only person saying, oh my gosh, you don't know what's coming. This is going to change the world.
Right.
And nobody was listening. And I was, and this was happening. We were being puppets, and our data was being harvested, and all these algorithms were actually controlling us where we didn't even know it. Mm-hmm. ChatGPT is the first time where there's a consumer product oh my gosh,
it's giving it back to us.
It's giving it back, but it's doing this by all this data that we've given to this box, right?
Yeah.
And now it's just sort of opened that box to go, oh my gosh, this is what we've built. This is what's coming. So I love ChatGPT because it's shown people oh wow, this is a real thing. We need, I don't want to say concern, but we need to be ultra aware, right, of the world we're in and what's being created. Because if we don't help create it and we don't help, then somebody else will.
Yeah.
And it'll be not used for us. It'll be used, on top of or against us.
Yeah.
I've got some late breaking news.
It is.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Right. Yeah. Well, worse than that, can we also there's an elephant in the room when it comes to AI, too. and it's not your AI, it's not just chat, it's AI, right? And that elephant in the room is the Matrix, right? But more, I think, realistic than that is that people very much smarter than me, Stephen Hawking, I think, said that one of the things that could ruin civilization is artificial intelligence. Elon Musk, who's building it into his cars, has said he thinks it's one of these things that could really... So I think it has to be discussed in some way, shape, or form. Now, my take, I think, is similar to yours, Denham. Even with those warnings, it doesn't matter. The cat's out of the bag. Mm-hmm. The cat's out of the bag, and now it's really out of the bag with ChatGPT. We thought it was out of the bag with Alexa. Alexa and Siri were stupid compared to take the I out of the A. They were just so right. I think that has to be discussed a little bit, and I think brewers might fall into this group of people who are a little worried about the world.
I think I agree with you entirely. I think it is critical that it's being discussed.
Yeah.
And what I would say, though, is this isn't new. I'm sure the guy who invented fire went, look, Thog, this thing, fire, it's going to change the world. And I'm sure Crag or whatever is like, dude, stop, you're going to kill us.
Right, yeah.
Like, it can light the night sky, it can cook our food, but it also could burn the house down.
Yeah.
He was absolutely right. From there all the way to nuclear fission. Right?
Yeah.
Every single technological leap has come, the more powerful and the more potential for good, equally the more possibility of bad.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
AI is no different. The only concern I had for the longest time was that people weren't talking about it. So for that reason, this immense power is in the hands of literally a handful of people. Mm-hmm. It was Xi Jinping, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, a few people. That is bad. That is really bad.
Yeah, yeah.
What you need to do, so our tagline, this is not good for a podcast, but I'm picking up a coaster, and our tagline was AI for everyone. Mm-hmm. But now, actually, our tagline is democratizing AI. Because I think that is the best way to ensure that the dystopian future that AI will bring does not eventuate, and the possibilities of AI doing good is amplified. You have to put this in the hands of everyone. And I think, and honestly, I think this is the reason why beer is so good with this, is because this is actually the most consumed alcoholic beverage on the planet. It's the fourth most consumed liquid on the planet.
Okay.
Right, which is great. If this is a
Do you know the other three?
Yeah, it's water, coffee, tea, beer.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I think tea is the top processed
maybe.
beverage.
Yeah, maybe.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Sorry. You're right. So take out water, which is not processed. It is milk, which is now considered processed. So it's milk, tea, coffee, beer.
Okay. Curious. All right.
And number one, so if this is the vehicle to democratize AI, then honestly, this is what I'm excited about.
Yeah. And this is what I can tell when you get into this. And well, I want to, let's use the platform real quick and evaluate this beer before it gets warm in my glass, right? And then we can come back to this kind of democratization of info, which needs to happen. So I have Teresa Pasuti's beer in front of me from Crooked Lane. Do you want to describe the beer to us, Teresa, to our folks at home?
Yeah, so this is an Australian-style pale ale. You should always say style if it's...
Oh, because instead of just an Australian pale ale?
Australian pale ale, because I didn't get it from Australia.
Sure, and you'll get angry emails about that.
Yeah, maybe. So Australian style, meaning it's got Galaxy and Motueka for hops.
Nice.
And it's just like a pretty dry pale ale, fairly bitter, pretty bright with hops. Mm-hmm. We discussed a little before, and I'd love to get your, human feedback on this beer.
Which you will. Yeah.
And, this...
Is it... Is the main difference from an American pale ale just the region that the hops come from, or is it a higher alcohol or a drier? What do you think?
It's This is 6%, so it still falls in that like higher ABV for pale ale range. But I think for an Australian pale ale, it should be a little bit paler. For an American pale ale, should be a little darker beer.
Makes
honestly.
sense. Okay.
And then
you're already influencing my
the
feedback.
hop character. It really, it should be tropical. It should be. This obviously has like tons of diesel.
Yeah, this
like
is dank.
A truck went by now. It's super dank.
Is that the Motueka?
I think it's the Galaxy.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it'll calm down, but it was kind of funny when I sipped it today. I was like, oh.
But it's super fresh.
It's
right?
very fresh.
Yeah.
It's just finished, just packaged
it's fierce.
yesterday. So,
it's fierce.
It needs like a week to chill.
This is kind of a brewer's beer, though. Like this right now.
Yeah,
right?
I mean we're down. Like we love it at the brewery. Like, but I think it'll chill. It'll mellow a bit.
Okay.
But yeah, it's our. So we made this beer originally, I think, towards the end of last year or the very beginning of this year. Our second batch went to the Brewers Cup of California, and it won an award there.
Okay.
So we rebrewed for GABF. So this beer is going to the Great American Beer Festival.
Nice.
Which, now that I've said it, it's definitely not going to do anything.
Yeah, you just jinxed it already?
Yeah,
I
definitely
know.
jinxed it.
There are so many jinxes, counter jinxes, reinterpretations of jinxes. I wouldn't worry about it.
That's
okay,
right. That's
I
right.
won't worry.
Well, actually, no, I would, but it's not my beer.
Well, I mean, it's like saying don't wake up in the morning. Like if you always worry.
Can I ask what category you put this in?
Australian Pale Ale.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So this will be interesting because the Australian Pale Ale. So we've done. I have a very small brewery, but we've done relatively well. We've won Champions SA State Brewery 3 years in a row now, and this I wouldn't go in. So the International Australian Beer Awards is actually the largest annual beer awards in the world, right? The one held out in Melbourne, and we won champion Australian Pale Ale a couple of years ago. But like this would be, I think, considered definitely in the national competition. Maybe not the international Australian Beer Awards, but definitely the Independent Beer Awards, which is the national one. Too hoppy.
Yeah.
For an Australian Pale Ale.
Oh,
Okay.
interesting.
I love it, but I suspect.
What about ABV?
ABV would be a little
It's
too
also
high.
It's
pretty
too
high.
high
It'll be
and
too
then
high,
too hoppy.
too
So
hoppy.
it's kind of fallen in
Right?
the IPA category.
It'll fall in the IPA category.
Interesting.
As an IPA, I think this would.
But of course, one of the secrets to entering is
Yes.
crowding the category.
Okay.
You know, surmounting the parameters just enough so that it has that wonderful extra flavor,
Stands out.
and,
It's so-
and
it's so
doesn't
true.
set off
Yes.
any alarm bells with the judges.
Most of the times we've done something like that, it's out. It's on the edge of
Yeah.
the beer style.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Yeah.
like that's
the
I
game.
mean, you know way more than me, but like that,
Yeah.
I think about that.
It's sort of a common knowledge and a common complaint among brewers too, that you have to do that, and then they're like, I mean, if I made it the way I want to drink it, I would have pulled back on the hops or pulled back on the alcohol or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's competition beer. So.
Can I ask a question? And I should have asked you, Dick, before because I've had. Does GBAF do they test the trophy winners? And
Oh
so
no,
on and so forth? They
no,
don't?
there's no analysis.
Really?
Yeah.
Because in Australia, we were warned. If you won, and again, I'm doing a little bit of boasting. We won 4 trophies at the last, and so all our beers were tested, and it all came in. But if not, we were just like
So testing to see if the
Wow.
ABV was too high or
Yep.
okay.
Really?
yeah.
That's-
so if
No,
you
we don't
fall
do
out,
that.
No.
And if
I
you
think
don't
there'd be an
pass your
uproar.
test, if you don't pass the test, they strip the award off you.
Wow.
We
Oh,
did
that's interesting.
we did a pale ale festival here last November. Stupid idea, but really good
No, it
beers
wasn't.
here. And anyway, the winner of the beer was like this. It was the hoppiest, the closest to the edge. But there was another problem. There was an almost instant uproar because the name of the beer, Alvarado Street won, and the name of the beer, if they had made it previously, apparently as an IPA, So when people looked it up that day, the only trace of it you could find on the internet was this 7% IPA. And here at the Hop Grenade, people started telling me right away, hey, I think you got sandbagged. We think they sent. So I ended up embarrassingly having to call the brewer and be like, bro, I have to ask you. You just won the competition. And I've been told that this is an IPA and I can't find it anywhere. And he's like, man, those people are right, but we changed it. And I'll send you the brew sheet if you want. And that was enough for me. I was like, I trust you. I just needed you to say that. You're the winner. So there'd be uproar here.
But there are a couple of ways to look at that, too. I mean, on one side, that's how new styles are born.
Yeah.
Is that parameters are crowded. I mean, I remember a lively discussion I had on the GABF floor many years ago about a couple of pale barley wines that we were drinking, and people were saying, I don't know that this is barley wine. Well, that's how double IPA was born.
Right, right.
And another thing is that, I forgot what the other thing is. But
yeah, you're absolutely right. That is how styles are born. It's just always a controversial thing. And I think testing I think half the brewers actually would encourage it, and the other half around here would go, no, absolutely not.
Yeah, I thought of the other thing is, and that is another way that a little bit of, I mean, you could call it subterfuge, you could call it, really walking the line in terms of deciding where you're going to enter your beer.
Yeah.
But I remember many years ago, Sam Adams' Boston Ale won in the Düsseldorfer Alt category.
Okay, yeah.
It's like, and I entered an amber ale that I made in Seattle at Elysian, in ordinary bitter and won a couple of medals with that.
Yeah. And just completely out of style. Yeah.
Well, not necessarily.
Yeah. Well, okay.
Well, yeah,
I guess you're right.
Is it more important that you brewed a beer in that style? We entered a barrel-aged Doppelbock as an old ale once.
Okay. I don't think it's that important.
Yeah.
I mean, if it,
I think that, like, how you got there is less important than where it is.
Yeah, and the descriptions for the styles are changing every year, and they everybody, every organization tries to get better and better and better at it. And so, given that if it falls within the verbiage of the style,
right, you're right.
That's it's in the pocket.
Then it fits. All right, I'm going to review this beer. Just to walk through the platform. So I've scanned the QR code as if you were here at the bar, or maybe you found it on a can of beer. In this case, it says AI at the Hop Grenade. I'm going to click the review button, which is going to take me right to where we're getting started. And it's, in this case, again, asking me what beer I'm drinking. I got a little drop-down menu. We are having Crooked Lane's Kangaroo Culture. So I'm clicking that, going to the next question. And it's telling me, I have open surveys. We have open surveys.
Yeah, you have a couple of them.
I skipped it. Yep. I like that, though, that if I were using this as a regular user, because I did create an account that'll let me know, like, hey, drunkie, you didn't finish your last review.
Actually, can I just tell you why we have that as well?
Sure.
And we need to actually and this is very much a prototype, but we have an AI bar, which we can talk about later. Mm-hmm. So these can actually then create a QR code which you can take to your AI bar and then personalize a beer for you. So if you've got open surveys,
you want to finish
because that'll inform the AI bar to give you the beer that you want.
Yeah,
got it.
You'll get a better beer.
You'll get a better beer.
Yeah.
So that's the reason that's there, but we don't have the AI bar here.
So then it's going to give us a description of this beer, which I think this is important because I'm a consumer, right? So I'm going to know, I want to know what you were going for. Mm-hmm. So Teresa provided this description, but you've already basically described the beer for us. So yep. I'm gonna pass through that. And okay,
although it's very clever.
It is a good description.
Oh, I know. Well,
it is
so
written, and he's an author. So.
We have a lot of fun. So we on every can we have a blurb. We call it the blurb. It's like, 5 lines of text, and we have fun because I'm a reader of everything. Like I'll read the cereal box. I read every can I have. Mm-hmm. I always want someone to get us. So they have to read the can and be like, oh, they're a bunch of silly people over there.
Oh, it's important. I mean,
it is.
I still take great pleasure that whatever else they've done to Space Dust, they've kept the copy I wrote on every package.
Nice. I didn't know that. That's great.
And I'm not saying they've ruined it.
No. You didn't say that. Okay, first question then is, how would you improve this beer's appearance? And then it's a slider, and it starts in the middle where that's perfect, and I can go to make it cloudier at -10 or make it clearer at 10.
So, yeah, this has some clarity to be desired.
Yeah. I'm going to make it clearer by 4 points on my voting.
I
Teresa.
made it only clearer by 2.
Okay.
Because
I
think it's very pretty.
I'm about 4 on my slider.
It's not hazy.
I like a bright beer, but I don't mind a little cast.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually said perfect because, like, in the Australian Pale Ale category, like, Cooper's Pale Ale is the classic, and it's hazier than this.
Oh, really?
Which I actually think is too, like, yeah, they actually say
it's
roll
like
it.
2 style.
Oh,
Like,
right.
Yeah, so
Okay.
they make a big thing about here, you're supposed to roll it and distribute the yeast and blah, blah, blah. So I actually thought, yeah, this is actually
You left it right there.
perfect.
So what do you think about stopping by Colorado to judge this
yeah.
beer competition?
Fine. I'm there. Done.
All right.
I'm still waiting on my invite,
Okay.
personally.
And I'll skip to the next question. How would you improve this beer's aromatics? All right, and we agree. We all agree that it's got a lot of diesel in there.
Yeah.
But it's quite a lot's gone out now.
I'd also like to make the observation that when we first got this beer, it was full to the brim.
Yeah,
and
and
it was
mine's like
really
almost
hard
empty now.
to evaluate the aromatics
Yeah.
at that point. And I wanted to get it out of the way and do it so we could go on and have the discussion, but I had a hard time. But now that I can actually stick my nose in the glass,
Yep.
I can form a much better opinion.
Okay. Well, and we're going to end up talking about these questions too, especially as this being a work in progress, the whole platform. But it's just, again, how would you improve the beer's aromatics? And the choices are to decrease or increase the same. It's a lot closer to perfect now than it was at the start for
Agreed.
me. I'm going to decrease them just by a touch, 2. But it is much closer to leaving it alone now that it's chilled out.
That's what I would say.
I was at 2 as well.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Okay. Now this one's how would you improve this beer's flavor? And the choices here are: would we make it less bitter or more bitter? For me, from a bitterness standpoint, it's just fine. I'm happy with it.
I'd also like to submit, and this resonates with some of the discussion we had before, and I know this is something we will talk about as this whole thing develops.
Yeah.
But it would be nice to have a few more subjectives to be able to put in here, because it's not just about less bitter and more bitter in terms of what the flavor is. There are distinctive hop varieties in this, and there's one flavor I don't like in it, but mostly I really do like it.
Yep.
So I didn't want to be hard on it just because of personal taste.
Yeah.
But perfect, that doesn't really describe what I'm getting
Sure.
from this. But Denham has said that as time goes on, different incremental questions can be added that will create a more complete model.
And I want to get into that. I'm going to move us to a break. So I'm just going to finish the review here, and that's a perfect segue, because right when we come back, I want to dive into that. Because my guess is we're going to find out things like there are certain consumers like you and I, Dick, that want more detail in this app, and there are certain ones that are like, okay, man, that's 4 questions are enough. And so, and it's probably a balancing act that Deep Liquid's going through. The 4th question here, and I think there's only 4 questions in this particular one, and how would you improve this beer's mouthfeel? And for me, I wouldn't change a thing. I'm just going to
I
keep
think
it
the mouthfeel's
perfect.
great.
Perfect.
Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm hitting the submit button. I get to the end, and it says, thank you. Thanks for the brewers appreciate your collaboration in the pursuit of the best beer possible. You've now stepped into the future and helped to democratize AI. And then for more information, you can go to Deep Liquid. I'm going to hit the go to home button because I think it's going to let me evaluate some more beers as we go. So simple. Straightforward. If I was hanging out by myself at the bar or even with my friends and I saw this QR code that said, hey, tell me how you like the beer, I totally would have done it, and I would have felt really satisfied with that experience. And that's not just because I'm here interviewing you. That it was simple enough. The dissatisfactions I have, we're going to talk about in the next segment. But as an overall thing, I'm like, Well, that was pretty cool. I just got to tell Crooked Lane what to do with their beer. That's kind of nice.
Well, it's like, it's definitely harmless, and then it might be helpful. You know, but it's kind of hard to know. So, like, I want to hear more about that. Like, like what's behind here? What does it really mean?
Absolutely.
Perfect segue.
Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to take ourselves a quick break, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about the platform in depth, what the brewers can expect to get back from it, what kind of data they receive, and then Dick and I have some comments about the questions, I think, is what's going to happen. So, all right, hang in there. You're listening to The Session, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to The Session. Thank you for hanging out with us. We are still drinking beer, of course, because that's what we do here on the show. And talking about Deep Liquid, you can go to it's deepliquid.ai if you want to check out more and learn more. If you're a brewer or a consumer, and as we might find out later in the program, even for other liquid platforms, Deep Liquid is doing the work. But beer is the primary issue here and our topic. And we've got, like we said, 5 different breweries participating today, and a brewery that's just joining us in the studio, a favorite of mine for years now, not just because I'm a huge John Martin fan, but because I think I drank nothing but 1500 for a good year on this show, like when it came out or when it got perfected. I don't remember exactly when, but I spent a lot of time drinking 1500 on the show. So we've got a couple of brewers, both the production manager brewer and the a brewmaster and director of brewing operations. We've got well, we'll start with the brewmaster. We've got Devo Buckingham's in here with us. Welcome. Director of Brewing Operations as well. Pull that microphone up real close if you don't mind. The only thing I can't fix is it being far away. But everything else I can fix. And then we've got Miguel Ceja with us as well, who is a production manager and head brewer, I think, right? So thanks for getting the beer to us. Really, I'm a big fan of Drake's and all that you guys do there, so I'm happy to meet you both and be able to hang out and talk beer with you. So I was just telling you guys at the break to go ahead and go through the platform and vote on your own beer. Not vote, give some answers. Provide input on your own beer. While the rest of us sort of talk about what we said before the break, which is to discuss the platform itself and kind of the goods and the bads so far. And I also want to get into what info ends up being provided to the brewers after this experiment in this case. Mm-hmm. So, as you saw before the break, we were provided with 4 questions that, you know, in some ways felt quite simple enough to me. Like I said, at the end of the experience, I felt satisfied that I was able to participate and give some feedback. But as a bit more of a beer nerd, I did want something a bit more robust, a few other questions.
Something a little more descriptive.
A little more descriptive in some cases. And part of that actually is a misconception I had about the platform Denim. One thing I thought, and I don't know where I came up with this, probably because I don't listen very well, was I thought maybe the brewers provide a full recipe to your platform, to the AI. Literally all the malt, all the hops, you know, the whole bill. And then as consumers give feedback, and some of that feedback is what I think Dick and I were talking about, like, well, I taste a citrus character. I wish there was more citrus. I taste a pine, and I wish there was more pine. I taste a certain grainy quality. I wish there was less of that, right? Which is some pretty beer nerdy stuff. So not every consumer is going to want to dive that deep. And my thought then was that the AI takes all that input and goes back to Teresa and says, more Citra hops, less Motueka. You were a little high on the grain bill. So I thought it really went nuts with like the recipe. But it's not that. So I wanted to just, yes, please do. But I wanted to present my first misconception.
It's not a misconception. You listened very well.
Okay.
So what we have is sort of a tiered process where brewers and we're just testing this out. And if I, went to Devo or Miguel and said, hey, give us your recipe for this, right? You're like, you're not, right?
Not going to happen, yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So what we can do is we can give them immediate customer feedback. So we talked about this a little bit off air, where prior to having a brewery, I was in investment banking, and we dealt with a lot of a lot of companies that spent you had to pay them a ton of money to do consumer research. We can get immediate customer feedback, which then says here, and you don't have to do anything, right? So as a first step, what we did, and what we did at San Francisco Beer Week, is we got some reviews and said, here, this is what the guys during San Francisco Beer Week said, and this is how you may want to adjust.
Okay.
But there's no AI altering the recipe. For us, where the AI has access...
At your brewery, when you say us.
Brewery, yes, Barossa Valley Brewing, my brewery.
Yeah.
It has access to all of that. It can actually say, here are recipe variations.
Okay.
Right? And the brewer gets to choose, right? And the brewer, and really, I'll be entirely honest, rarely the brewer picks one and goes 100%. Like, yes, I like this, but I think we should tweak this a little bit here or there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it does the hard work, the number crunching, and just puts it in a format where the brewers can just make the best decisions.
And take it or leave it.
It's a discussion, not a mandate.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so that's good to hear then, because I thought that was so cool that I would want the tweaks to my recipe. Just again, they just crunched all the data for me, so now I can look at it and decide. But then, even as just a sort of a normal consumer, there was just some even mid-level range that I wanted today, right, Dick? Like just something else about other than like your example was flavor, bitter, less bitter.
Yeah, there's so much more to flavor than that.
Yeah,
obviously. And it would be nice to have, I would like to have 5 questions just on that.
Yes.
But as you say, people's attention might not bear that.
So I wonder if in your testing, Denim, so far, the people are like, it's too much already.
Yeah, it's bloody TikTok, right?
Yeah.
It's created an attention span of like...
Would there be some way of building in tiers of engagement?
That's actually exactly what I think we need to do.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We need to... maybe have 4 questions, and then in Australia it's really easy to do this because we can reward people with points, beer points, and so on. So, hey, if you answer 4 more questions, right, then you'll get X, right? So we can actually start rewarding them.
Nice.
Where it's harder to do here for various legal reasons.
Okay.
But I think that's what we need to do.
Free beer. We can't get
right,
away.
we
Can't
can.
do it, yeah.
We can give them free beer, right?
You can give,
And
well,
so people,
you can give like % off a pint or something. I mean,
can
maybe
you can discount,
like
but
each brewery
yeah.
could decide on what their
exactly,
deal is.
and it's so tough here because every
Or a
state is
wristband.
different. And,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's so difficult. Where in Australia, it's actually relatively simple to give away free beer.
Yeah, and you also have
Amazing.
you also have tap fees.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's good and bad, but but what I think we need to do is find a way to identify what range you fall in. So I was having a chat to actually some of your customers who are really knowledgeable, and this is again the beauty of AI. We can go, okay, this is questionnaires from the Hop Grenade. One, we can overweight this because if somebody is, reviewing 1,500, we know that's not a 22-year-old who ordered a Cosmopolitan and accidentally got this and like, oh, I'm going to slam this beer, right? Which is what happens on some platforms.
Yeah.
We can go, no, this is a Hop Grenade customer. We're going to overweight their opinion.
Okay.
And we can potentially even give them additional questions because we know that they're probably interested in the actual beer and they want to connect to drink.
Yeah, see, this is where the crux is here.
Right?
I love it.
And then, that's the beautiful thing about AI. And then the other thing we can do is, and I think we need to sort of understand, like, I think there can be one question, are you in the industry? Are you a brewer? Are you a beer nerd? Boom. And then I think what we need to do is then tailor those questions. Because a beer nerd, a brewer, somebody, who's, a customer here regularly.
Yeah, just engaged like
engaged
that. Yeah.
will spend 2 minutes. Whereas a general, and we've been testing this, the general population,
Right.
30 seconds.
Yeah,
and
but
then they're bored.
it strikes me that you could build in,
Yeah.
things that would steer people to a secondary menu of questions if they were into it.
You could almost put it on the same page and just have that initial slider, and then it would say more. You could either submit or you could click the more, and then you get all these other sliders that have to do with flavor, and then you could really like dial it in.
Because one thing that this really does is it fosters customer loyalty and engagement. And if you have all that stuff, and for people who really want to get into it, they really feel increasingly connected to the experience of drinking this beer.
Yeah.
And I will say that what we found, and this is very new, but we tend to have, if we have a lot of questions, we have a lot of drop-offs. But then the people who do participate and spend even that, 60 seconds, you've got them. They're in. They're connected to your brand, right? So we do need to find a way to, entice people, because if you can get them to spend 60 to 90 seconds on your product.
That's a lot of time, really.
It's a lot of time. But if you can find
Sounds
that
weird,
spot, right, where you just can get them to spend a little bit more time, then they're connected and they're invested.
Yeah.
And if you can invest in your brand, then that is hugely valuable.
Sure, yeah.
And it provides increased resolution
Yes.
to the experience.
It's good for everyone. It's good for the brewer. It's good for the platform. It's good for
as
the
long as
consumer.
the platform is resilient enough to forgive them for not answering every single question.
Yes.
Yeah, for
That's-
sure.
Yeah.
Yes. We
Yeah.
found that to be an issue. Yes. We'll fix that. We will fix that.
Well, this is just starting, and AI is just so, well, like you've said, so robust, but also so new. This is going to be a learning curve to figure out how it works for everybody, and the consumers included. So, like, the thing that I thought was cool about this event, especially because I love this beer, I'm actually surprised. I don't know if it was y'all or John that decided it was okay to send 1,500, because the idea is that it might get tweaked, like maybe on a small batch. I was like, that's...
And,
I was
and
like,
thank
that's
you
friggin' cool.
thank you for being open to even thinking about that.
I just thought that was super cool.
Yeah, Miguel's idea was to pick a beer that we like, that most people knew and were familiar with, and
Yeah.
Like, times are changing.
Yeah.
1500 has remained strong through the years, but in the future,
Totally.
we totally want to look at new innovative ways to
Well, and I was even, when I was inviting brewers to this event, I was, in some ways treading lightly because they're trying to figure out what beers to send. And I actually suggested sending a flagship too. But my thought was, like, especially if you're a small enough, like a nimble enough brewery, I was like, make all the changes that it suggests, but call it something different. Like, call it, just on that one batch. Maybe it's just a smaller batch that's going to be at this event and a couple of accounts. Call it the robots are taking over. Have fun with it, right?
1600.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, like, how cool would it be for your...
Yeah.
How cool would it be for your customers to go, okay, we're going to, like, help create the 1501.
1600,
right?
yeah, 1501,
right?
yeah,
1501,
yeah.
like, just whatever that is. Like that.
That's what I thought too, yeah.
That would, like, these guys, like, you would know better than I, but they would go, oh, wow. Oh,
Yes.
wow.
I was
right?
here for that. I
Right.
put some, and then
A
they
little
just
bit of
come
me's in
to,
there,
Yes,
right?
exactly. So I was making this. You're the only ones who did it, but that's not true. Actually, Pale from the Crypt is a flagship of theirs too.
Well, also,
So-
21A sent
Oh.
the Blood Orange.
Blood Orange is a flagship
brew free
of
or
theirs.
die.
So
Yeah, right.
everybody did. Everybody said
Everyone went for it. Everyone just went for it.
Except for me, I went out.
No, not at all.
Do you guys
I
have
think-
a flagship though?
Yeah.
You were just,
Oh,
you're,
yeah.
you're too nimble. Oh, you do.
We
okay.
do.
Okay.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. Okay.
Side
I
bit didn't.
don't want your opinion on it.
Yeah. Right. Well, I don't. We don't have to go through every beer on the platform.
Which
but
one of these is the 1500?
The one on your right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I haven't tasted either of them yet, and I wanted to make sure I was. Yeah.
But I kind of want to go through the 1500 since you're here, if you don't mind. So same thing. I just scan the code. I'm just going to get started right away. It's going to ask me which of these beers I'm drinking, which is the 1500.
Can I say this is one of the good things about the app is that generally you don't have the brewers on your left of you when you're doing this.
Right.
'Cause
Good point. Yeah. So we've all had an agreement off air that we're allowed to say whatever the fuck we want about Deep Liquid and the beer in front of us. So, yeah.
it's a good thing. I'm
We
really
can
loving
take
this
it.
beer.
I'll read the description first that was provided to us by Drake's, by somebody at Drake's, maybe one of you, I don't know. And the way the Deep Liquid does it on the platform, it says, here's what to expect from the Drake's Brewing Company 1500 Pale Ale. It's generously dry hopped with Amarillo and Simcoe for a bright, piney punch. 1500 brings together orange blossom and grapefruit notes with a touch of honey sweetness. But we don't like choosing favorites, but 1500 is our perfect everyday hoppy beer.
Big facts.
Yeah. And then I can move right on to and there's just 4 questions in this one, as we've said. And then, I'm curious what you all think about the questions, too, and how it goes. But how would you improve the beer's appearance? I'm closer to Dick on this one than I was the last one. I wanted, Teresa, yours to be way clearer. I just want this one to be slightly clearer.
2 more for me.
You're going 2 on
Yes.
that? Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm about that. I'm about a 2. What was I, a 4 on the last one?
I don't mind somewhat hazy beer, and I drink all of them, but I always like brightness.
Yeah.
So mine, to me, tasted like not bright, but this one tastes bright, even though it isn't 100% clear. So, like,
Good point.
I don't have much problem with it. But
All right, I'm going to go to the next one. Aromatics. Well, it's hard to go wrong with Amarillo and... What was it, Amarillo and...
Simcoe.
Simcoe, yeah. It's
I
hard to
mean,
go wrong.
I love Amarillo. I'm not a Simcoe fan.
I'm a Simcoe fan. I don't like it hot side, but I like it
After.
Yeah.
I didn't like it for a long time, and then it just grew on me.
Yeah.
For me, it's peanut shells.
yeah, it's
Oh,
really?
interesting.
We had this discussion,
Yeah.
and
That's
I love
weird.
it.
I don't
And
think
you
I've
go,
heard that.
Yeah,
I don't get
Simple
that.
as a nuance. I mean, you can't just use it by itself 100% unless you have like a very good
Totally.
lot. If you use it, with other hops that are going to build it up and are going to help it out,
Yeah.
so you get something
There,
like this.
yeah, absolutely. There are Simcoe blended beers that I absolutely love. But
Well-
one thing, I made the comment earlier about the difficulty of getting a fresh sample that's filled to the brim and evaluating aromatics. Because like when you're judging, you get a glass of beer that has this much in it, like 15% of the glass volume, and you're able to stick your nose into it. With this, I mean, I'm going to take a big gulp of this
Just to
before
be
I
able to
even
get that.
evaluate the aromatics. So I will already have tasted it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, with that, I'm going to go a little more on this one too. I want a little more of that Amarillo in there, a little more both, but not by much. I'm going to go 2. One thing I found about 1500 for me, this isn't on the list, but you're going to get it from me anyway. In the beginning, when I was drinking it so often, it was one of the perfect pale ales, and as pale ales have gotten, the American pale ales gotten like a little hoppier and a little drier, more exactly, right? So did my palate. So from time to time when I have a 1500, this actually isn't one of those times, it's way more malty than I want it. And then other times like this, it's just super balanced. And I think it might have to do with what else I drank that week. If I was having like if it was an IPA week, well then 1500 ends up super malty to me. Does that make sense at all?
Oh, absolutely. I remember, going on trips to Southeast Asia or to Mexico or something and drinking lighter beers that aren't as hoppy and coming back home and going, whoa.
Yeah, what happened?
This beer that I'm used to, that I usually just toss down is really bitter.
Yeah.
There's an acclimation period.
But today I'm going on a 2, a little up. Like I said, it goes up to 10 if you want to increase it, or minus 10. Aromatics on that one were just up.
I mean,
a couple.
for me, I think the Amarillo, I get that. I don't think it's for me even. Not a Simcoe fan. I don't get too much Simcoe. I think it's really nicely balanced.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that brings us to the next question, which is about the bitter balance. How would you improve the beer's flavor? And the choices are less bitter or more bitter in this case. And I'm just going to leave that perfect. I think it's balanced for me. Wouldn't change much there. And the same with the mouthfeel. You guys know what you're doing. I can't change your mouthfeel there. That's fine. By the way, the metrics there are thinner or fuller on mouthfeel. So I guess there are times where I would say I want 1500 thinner. Today's not one of them. I've been drinking light
It's
beers.
a super drinkable beer.
So yeah.
Yep.
And then I'm going to submit that info. Okay. So now that I've submitted that info, and what we haven't done, and I've talked about what I thought the platform does now. What kind of info are these folks going to get after this event? Yeah.
So basically, you'll get a report that basically identifies what people have said, and basically they're just charts, right? And also what we do is the data we get here is really narrow because this is obviously a test, but in Australia what we do is, because we've been collecting more data, you can actually compare that to the market, right? So you can sort of see where the market's going. And that's...
How do you mean?
Well, we basically collect a lot of data from various breweries to say, okay, this is where you sit in terms of, so it's not just yours, it's yours compared to
So, like
the
every
market.
hoppy pale ale that's
Right,
participating
exactly,
in the-
exactly.
Yeah.
And this is why I was really keen.
And do you get numbers? Do you say there's this 458 participants?
No, you don't. No, well, no, we don't at this point. But no, we haven't put the quantities there. But one of the things why I thought, and we talked about this a little bit, why craft beer is a wonderful vehicle for this is, one, beer is the fourth most consumed beverage, but also because craft brewers tend to be very open to working together, right? So all this information is anonymized, but it does help us understand where we are. Now, you might want to be, okay, the market in IBUs is here. I want to be here, which is fine, right? But it's good still to know what the market is. So the information you're going to get here is just going to be, this is what people thought in terms of where, the beer sat in those four categories.
Maybe there needs to be an AI avatar that's tattooed and bearded.
Yes, that talks back to you about what happened.
Well, interestingly, so again, you weren't here for this, but we were really lucky. I can't remember if I said this is even on air, but our founders, our co-founders, are literally the number one AI scientist in Australia, and the guy who hired him, and so on and so forth. So they were actually saying what we should do is actually just be able to speak into, this is what I think. And we have the ability to do that. Like, I think this and this. And you could be speaking to your bearded AI avatar.
Yeah.
And your avatar...
See, that would even solve some of the issues we're raising about
Yes.
the number of questions to put in there. You can sit there for 5 minutes and talk to it if you want to, or spend 30 seconds going, I don't know, it's pretty clear, it was tasty.
And I'm bored now, go away.
And I wish it was hoppier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you could do that. And you could have your avatar going, you know what, what didn't make sense. This is what the brewers
It should
thought.
also be profane.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, the more you've drunk, the more you reviewed, the more profane your
The
avatar
avatar
gets.
gets.
Like, shut up and go home. You're talking rubbish now.
Exactly.
Go to bed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and maybe because I'm a beer person, but I think it's kind of fun to review in this really simple format, because, I mean, if I'm not sitting here discussing a beer, I might just drink a beer and I don't think too much about it, but
Right.
I feel like there's something to be gained by just slowing down and being like, what do I think about this?
Yeah. So,
Sometimes I think it's nice to just drink a beer. And not
Well,
think
for
about
sure.
it.
Yeah, for sure.
So I get that from being on the show and not on the show. When I'm out doing something and I come across listeners, they're like, hey, what do you think of that beer? What's happening? I'm like, oh, fuck, I don't know. I didn't think about it at all.
know.
I ordered a beer that it looks good, it smells good, that's fine.
Yeah.
But of course, on the show, I have to be a little different than that. And I'm forced to, like you're saying, I'm forced to
Yeah.
sit down and think a little more about it. So yeah, it's a little bit of both, which again is why I maybe like the tiers of this platform. Because on a night that it's maybe my favorite brewery, I want more questions. But on another night, I just want to tell you just a couple things.
No, you're absolutely right. And you know what? It's a problem we need to solve, because I'm absolutely the same way. I've actually had to train myself. So I'm sure, Dick, I don't know if you've had this issue because you've been in the industry much longer than any of us, but probably at around the 10-year point, I had to find a way just to shut my brain off and drink a beer and enjoy it. It
Right.
was really tough.
Stop ruining it. Yeah.
Just you used to enjoy this, and now you have to
I know.
analyze every little thing.
still in
I've
the
had a hard time
analytical
doing
phase.
that. I remember on a family vacation, my brother handed me a beer, and I was turning the label around and looking
Right,
at
yeah.
everything. He said, just fucking drink it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm great at it, to be honest. People get annoyed with me. Like my co-host, Beardy, gets really annoyed with me when he asks me about beer, and I'm like, I don't fucking know, man. Just finish it. It's fine.
That dude is very detail oriented.
He is detail-
He cannot relax.
But
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that, again, I hate to keep going back to AI, but it can solve this problem. Like, we can identify where you are, what your patterns are. Like, I know this sounds creepy, right? It does.
But it's happening anyway, is
it
what you've mentioned.
This is
Well,
exactly what I'm saying. It's happening. What we should do is go, okay, this is how we can use it to benefit me. Like, this is what I want, right? As opposed to big companies harvesting your data and saying, this is what we're going to get you to do.
Yeah.
Right? And
yeah.
this is the difference. So again, it sounds creepy only because it's been inflicted on us as opposed to us using it for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We need to go, okay, this is how we're going to use it. And AI can go, okay, you know what? I know that you're at the hop grenade. You're possibly there's nobody around you, so you're there by yourself. Here, I'm going to give you 8 questions as opposed to 4. But now, I know you've been speaking to your mom or your best friends there. You're all at the hop grenade. You know what? I'm not going to bug you.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you 3 questions, right? So AI can do all of that. It can be used in a way that helps you.
Right.
It's just what we need to do is get into it. The worst thing we can do is stick our head in the ground.
Yeah.
Because then the big guys will go, okay, we're going to use this
Going to use it anyway.
on you.
All right, let's talk about that, specifically the sticking your head in the ground and how it relates to data. So there are other platforms out there, I don't know, Untapped, whatever. People are already participating. They're already ripping apart and loving on every beer that you make, right? It's been going on for a long time. They're not the only one.
Loving on
right?
every beer you make, I've never
Well,
experienced that.
ripping apart or loving on. That's what it's one or the other usually. And that data is just sitting there for you to read if you want to. I find that most brewers don't want to anymore. For other consumers to read, they do want to, especially the beer nerds. They want to find out what's happening. So all that data is there anyway. And some of the pushback I've gotten in talking about this from brewers is like, I don't want just another like rating platform. I don't want another thing that can tell me I suck, right? I got to sleep at night, And I thought about that. And I'm like, okay, I get it. I don't read the reviews for my show either. But if a robot could weed them out for me and then tell me how to do something better so I don't have to just feel bad about myself reading these things, I'd be pretty into that. And if it's already being done anyway, all those reviews are already happening anyway. This is kind of what I thought was cool about this, and I think it's what you thought too, Dick. If it's already being done anyway, and all that information is just sitting on a web page in the internet, why not give it to the robot? And let that person,
An avatar.
give me data on that, right? And I think that's sort of what the AI ends up doing.
Yeah.
And like we've said kind of over and over, or at least I'm really holding on to this, it's happening anyway, so give it back to me. Let me have it. Let me have that information. And by that, I mean as a brewer. Give it back to me.
Yep.
So
You're absolutely right, and there's probably no need for me to repeat what you said because you're absolutely correct. It's out there. What you need to do is use it to actually make improvements, but there's so much data there. You need, like, we are really good at the creative side, but in terms of, being able to filter through a ton of data, we're not good at that.
yeah.
AI is brilliant at it. Let it do that. But the other thing that I think is being missed is people just want to be heard, right? Even if you are saying something that is completely wrong, if we had the ability, right, if someone, and I've done this all the time, where, brilliant example, somebody slammed a mid-strength stout we did. It was at 3.5% because it wasn't big enough, and right, and I was like, and the brewers were so happy with it, and we actually won awards, and I had to explain, like, it's really hard. This is the brewing process, and, this is why it's really hard to brew, a low alcohol stout.
Yeah.
And then they were like, oh, this is really good now.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
But
Right.
if we had the ability, we just can't do that for every single Untapped, review that has no idea how, that style is supposed to be.
Right.
AI can do this, but still make the person feel heard, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Because we can say hand on heart, that information has come. We've heard you. Thank you very much, right? And that's the other thing we do here, right? We say thank you very much. That's gone to the brewer. And it can potentially inform them to make decisions.
Right.
Now, that is absolutely true. Even if they've given you feedback, you're like, no, because the AI, you can create parameters, they're still heard. And as long as somebody's feeling heard,
Sure.
they feel validated, and that's the best way to stop the vitriol and all
Yeah,
the
and
negative stuff.
I think one
yeah.
thing we can't stress enough is that when people feel heard and when they feel that the brewer is at least looking at the input that they're providing, they feel engaged. They
Right.
feel a loyalty to that beer, and they pay attention to it in its next iteration, and even the next time they're in another bar and they have the opportunity to order it, and they can say to their friends, I filled out this thing, and I feel like I have some engagement with this. Because we want to sell beer, right?
Well, it's probably going to guarantee that next sale, too. Right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
if they're filling it out, and then they're going to say, oh, well, did that work? Because I'm going to go buy another 1,500 and see if there are what the changes were.
Absolutely.
Whether or not my,
Totally.
opinion was validated, but yeah.
That's what I say to brewers who have misgivings about getting involved in this. It's like, if I have 16 taps, what's the harm in devoting one of those to a beer that I'm willing to fiddle around with, so that those 4 people sitting at the bar every day and it used to be just verbal interaction with them, but now there's the opportunity to do this kind of thing. If they're going to feel fiercely loyal to this beer, that's a win.
Yeah.
And sorry, I'm glad Dick raised that, because that's actually what we're trying to scale. That ability to talk to that person at your bar that comes there regularly and make them feel heard and listened and engaged. Like, if we could do that with, 1 million people, we'd all be doing very, very well.
Sure.
We just can't.
Yeah.
This allows us, in a fashion, to scale that interaction.
Yeah. There's another little component to it that I don't know how AI is going to relate to this, but I have this podcast effect, this interview effect. When I'm engaged, your beer always tastes better. There have been times, I'll be honest with you, that when I'm in this room with a brewer and I'm like, wow. And then I go buy their beer a week later, and I'm like, oh, it's really not that good. It's not terrible. I don't lie about terrible beer in here. But once I'm engaged with somebody and I'm hearing more about your story and I feel like we're friends, everything tastes better. That goes for restaurants, I feel like, if you're talking to the chef or something. So just engagement makes stuff taste better, too.
And that is an illustration of why we all do this, is human interaction.
Yeah.
And the AI is a tool to enhance human interaction.
Sure. So I say this, and it's a little tired, but I actually feel like that this RAI stands for augmented human interaction, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what we do is we augment human interaction, but also human, interest, and we augment the things that humans are good at. And I think, AI, we get really concerned that it's going to move everything towards the mean, and it's going to take humans out of the equation. AI at its best augments what's best about humans.
Mm-hmm.
Imagination, interaction, creativity, all that stuff.
Is there not just a world where we later on pour a beer into a test tube, let the computer, the AI, do its evaluation of it, and come back and say, Denim, this is the beer people really want?
Well, I would argue that is sort of where we were moving, and the big brewers were doing this, right? They were just doing a ton of market data, right? Looking at, again, getting consultants to just understand what's going to sell the most to the most amount of people, offend the least, so on and so forth. What I think AI can do is actually put individual human preference into the equation. So we talked about this off air, and it's been really interesting in that a lot of other beverages have come to me and saying, hey, can we do this? Can we do this? Right? And I've gone, yes. And so I hope I don't, go
That's
down
okay.
a rabbit
You're
hole,
right.
but a premium whiskey guy has said, this would be great. And because he was terrified about AI moving everything towards the mean, and particularly at that ultra high level, you want personalization, right? This is only for you. And I've gone, well, this is exactly what we can do. So what you can do is you can send out little test tubes from casks and then get a whole bunch of your best customers to help blend with the master blender, right? And so what we can do there is super personalize. And that's what we do here. So you're right, right? In that it could, right? Just go, okay, the AI says this is what's going to sell the most. And absolutely you could do this.
Okay.
But I will just tell you with our very first beer, the most sort of common comment was, oh, wow, this tastes like a Barossa Valley Brewing beer. I wasn't expecting that. We're in wine country, our beers are big and full-bodied and aromatic. And I said, well, yeah, that's because we train the AI, right, to our character was in there.
Got it. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it actually amplified what we wanted.
Okay. Yeah.
So it could do both. And this is what I'm saying. We need to get involved because AI can be dystopian or it can do really wonderful things. And it's our choice.
Yeah. And this is what I like about your attitude is you just keep reminding people, like, you can stick your head in the sand. Go ahead. But I think then you're just missing out on something. And not just an opportunity, but missing out on, well, then your data is just going to go somewhere else.
Well, and you know what? Somebody else will do it. Like, honestly, you'll be the last person who's like, no, this combustion engine's not going to do anything. I'm going to stick to my horse. Like, you will be the last person building the buggy.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly right. Well, did y'all try the Pale from the Crypt too? We have Liquid Gravity's beer in front of us. I didn't go through on the app, but I'll just fast forward ahead for my sake. It's one of my favorite pale ales on the planet. Also, it's all perfect to me. This one, I love this beer right now. Yeah. Brendan's also a friend of mine, so there's that engagement effect where I'm like, oh, everything you make is good, Brendan. It's fine. But no, I don't know what. Here's a case, actually, I think would be better to say is either my palate's not good enough or I'm not a good enough beer nerd or something that I know what to do better. And is that okay too, Denim, as far as the AI is concerned? Because if there's a whole bunch of zeros, a whole bunch of perfect on a beer, then I guess that's good to know too. Don't change a thing. I mean, that's what you experience?
Yeah, I think we talked about, I don't know if you recall this, but it's one of the things that I came back really thinking about from the last trip was there was a brewer, and I can't remember from which brewery, but his name was Santiago, and he said, one of the things that I love is like getting people to try something they won't like. And I said, that's what we need to do. We need to call this the Santiago sample, right? Right? Here's, because one of the things we can do is we can also recommend. So once you've reviewed a whole bunch of beers, we can say, hey, you're at the Hop Grenade. We know you like this. You know what's come on tap? You should try this, right? Yeah. But we should try the Santiago sample, which is, I don't think you'll like this. There's only computer's saying there's only a 17% chance that you'll like it. But do you want to try it? Right? So I think you are correct. And we need, because this is the beautiful thing about craft beer and what brewers love, is surprise. Yeah. And I think, if I'm being entirely honest, how do we protect that in this? If we are going to, create such efficiency
that we're no longer surprising people.
That we're not so, like, we're getting all zeros.
Yeah.
That's not helpful to anyone.
Sure.
So, and honestly,
which is virtually impossible to do, but still, it could happen. You got to make sure we're not just headed down that path.
And this is honestly one of the reasons I'm having these discussions. Like I said, this is a prototype. I'm keen to get feedback.
Yeah.
How do we use this to amplify what is amazing about this industry?
Yeah.
And how do we protect what is amazing about this industry? And I think you have touched upon one of them. Is like, okay, this is amazing. Like, how do I review it and not screw with it? Or like,
yeah. I just, again, feeling like I'm not smart enough to mess with this beer. But
maybe you can just say, you know what, just everybody can send that to Dick. And you're like, you know what, I know he's the pro here.
I got you. I got this. It's a good idea. All right. Well, how about this? Let's take another quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk a little more about it. We've got some other beers to try from our friends at the 21st Amendment and Sidegate right around the corner too. I know Dick's had that beer tonight too, so we want to get through some beer. But I want to talk about the AI bar too, which I'll explain a little in more detail because I didn't get that at first either. But how, after you use this platform for a while, the AI can get to know your preferences a little bit and maybe tell you what other beers you might like. So we're going to talk about that when we come back and a few other things. So hang in there. You're listening to The Session, and we'll be back after these words. Welcome back to The Session. Thank you for hanging out with us today. We are still talking beer with Deep Liquid, beer and AI, and tasting some more beer. We just went and got some 21st Amendment in our glass, the Brew Free or Die, I think. Is that what we have?
The blood orange brew free or die.
Blood orange brew free or die. That's what we have. You can smell it right away, can't you? Yeah. I didn't get into that one yet. We've also got the Sidegate 100 Hazy in front of us. So 2 more beers, and the last 2 that we're going to do on this show. And again, if you come down to the Hop Grenade anytime this week, then you can evaluate these beers as well, give your feedback. And the idea is, if we get enough data, and I don't know how much we are, we're just kind of put this together to see how it goes. If we get enough data, then the brewers will brew this again and come back with beers for another event, which I think will be super fun too. I don't even know that we'll do a podcast, but I just want to hang out and taste the beer and see how the feedback went. But who knows? So that's the goal here. Let's start with the brew free or die. And then as we taste that, go ahead, Dennis.
Sorry, can I just say something? Even if you don't rebrew the beer, I know this because we do this, we value that feedback, right? Mm-hmm. So even if we aren't going to, okay, you know what, we're going to take this and we're going to change the recipe, that feedback is super valuable. It is, and we really do listen to it. And I think the brewers that, are really, we do want, there's this balancing act about what you want to brew and what people want you to brew. And if you can engage more, it allows you to get that equilibrium. So even if we don't change it, right? Yeah. And they may or they may not, it is super valuable.
Sure.
So you're basically part of this, of the journey of the brewers and that brewery that, you love.
Yeah. I wonder, as you're talking about that, is there a worry that if, as a consumer, let's say the 21st Amendment or Drake's really adopts this and goes, okay, we're going to put this QR code on just everything we make. And then is there a worry that a consumer won't be heard? Is there a worry that now that you've opened up Pandora's box and said, I'm asking for all your feedback, but then maybe every time I try blood orange brew free or die, I can tell you didn't listen?
So I'll tell you, it's exactly like it's what humans do. You're heard, but I'm a parent, and I'll tell them this. I've heard you. I understand what you're saying. You're still not going to get what you want, right?
And you're also, you might not be right. So,
right? Exactly, right?
Yeah.
So it's exactly like this.
Sure.
We've heard you. We've listened.
Yeah.
We still believe we're going to do this.
Yeah.
But thank you very much for your feedback.
Right.
And honestly, my kids, I don't know if they know now to just say agree, yes, okay, I understand you. So we don't have, they can go back to their PlayStation.
Right.
But I feel like if I listen to them, I go, okay, this is what you've said. This is what I've said. Now I'm the parent.
Yeah.
I get to make the call.
Sure.
So okay, at least you've heard me.
But when Pandora opened the box, she tried to slap the lid back on, which she did. Nearly everything escaped, but only one thing remained in the box, and that was hope.
We're going to let hope out this time. Hope gets to go.
Well, and as I was asking that, I was answering in the back of my mind too. One of you said that still over time things might change. So even if the feedback isn't changing right now, it might in 6 months or 4 years or whatever, as if the feedback keeps coming in or as times just change, it still might eventually get put to use.
Exactly. Well, I'll even say 1500. The one that you tried 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It's significantly changed.
Right.
We had to switch up hops. We had to modernize. You have to acclimate to just the state of the industry.
Absolutely.
And I can't say that I tried 1500 10 years ago. I don't quite remember, but since I took over, I've had to make little changes. Obviously, you have to keep the same base, but it's just
you're still tweaking it, and
you have to modernize. You have to just kind of get with the program if you want to really survive, right?
Yep. And the modernization, I think, is twofold, right? It's not just like what ingredients are available and as new hops become available that you're excited about, but it's not getting left behind. And getting left behind, I think, has a lot to do with letting consumers have something to say about it, which, again, you're kind of already doing anyway, right? Like, first there was almost the death of the flagship. It's just whatever you make new is all I want. I just want the new thing. Well, now even that's changing. Like, that's going away where I'm like, no, I just kind of want another 1500, and I want another Sierra Pale Ale. and I might try your new flagship now, but now I take a little more convincing. And all of that, again, is just data and feedback that we can just keep getting. So I like that for this and for brewers who are willing to do it. Because the other side of this that might be fun to talk about just a few minutes, because who doesn't like to complain? There's plenty of brewers that we've all interacted with that don't want feedback at all. They don't want it from Untapped. They don't want it from me. They don't even want it from Dick. And that's weird to me when brewers go, I think we're fine. I think I make good beer. Vinny said to me once, I was walking through his new facility and his giant lab upstairs. And, the advice he always gives brewers is, you guys, you need a lab. And he told me that, that one day somebody said to him, well, I don't know why I need a lab. I sell every drop of beer I make. And I was like, you just said that to Vinny. Do you think that he doesn't sell every drop of beer he makes before he sells that beer 6 months before it's made? And he still has a lab. He has one of the most robust labs on the planet in beer because he wants it to get better all the time. Right, so we've gotten weird answers approaching brewers about this AI thing, and some of them are like, "Yeah, I don't want the feedback." Yeah.
I mean, being too cool for school is just ridiculous.
Well, but I have. So my first thought when I heard about this project was there are some beers that are sacred. Like, if you're a brewery that brews classic styles and you're trying to produce a beer that is what you envision is the most representative style for that particular beer, like that's you don't necessarily want to change it to public taste.
Yep.
And so I guess that's like what I think of breweries like that are not just doing all innovative beers. Like they have two jobs. Like one is to like brew beers that people really want to drink, and the other is to represent these styles and educate people on these beers that are not part of the mainstream culture anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as I said before, like you have 16 beers in your pub on tap, something like that. Maybe 12, 8 of them are absolutely inviolable. Some of them are ephemeral, they come and they go. Mm-hmm. And then, why not listen to people on some of these other ones?
Oh, totally.
Yeah. And engage them, because this is about customer engagement.
Prior to that, can I just go back to what you were saying about, I guess, not wanting feedback? Like, I don't know if you know this. This is a little known fact, but Kodak actually, the digital camera process, I don't know if this is well known, but they actually funded and created that. And went, no. We're doing well. We're making lots of money. Let's not go down there.
Many of our younger viewers might not recognize that.
Yeah, Kodak was one of like the largest capitalized companies on the planet. Like one of the most profitable.
Sure.
Right? And they saw it coming. They actually created it and went, no.
What's kind of crazy about that too is that actually the company name Kodak was the result of a consumer survey. It was sort of an innocuous, instantly recognizable name. And then when it came time to develop newer products, they were much more reluctant.
Not listening.
Yeah. But they actually did help fund it. Like they could have actually. So my point is, and this is just Kodak, but there are so many companies that are not here today because they went, yeah, you know what? We're doing really well. We don't want to listen.
So it's fine, right? Yeah.
Because the worst thing, the people that are most deaf are the people that have the most success.
Yeah.
And I think it is really important when you have success to listen to ensure that you maintain that.
Sure.
So that's what I was going to say about that. But I was going to say, yeah, absolutely. I think you're completely correct. There are some styles and beers that are sacrosanct.
Yep.
And so what we do is we train the AI to be really narrow, right? Mm-hmm. So it doesn't even give us it says here, these are the parameters. And as a matter of fact, so Dick hasn't yet got involved in training our AI, but I'd love him to, because, and I'm not just blowing smoke here, but clearly, he's done a lot of judging. He knows exactly the parameters. And it would be really good for you to go.
And they change.
Yeah, they do change. But some you don't want to change, right?
Yeah.
So we can go to Dick to say, here, this is we don't want to change these parameters. This is
Are you saying the avatar should look like me?
Well, we should have a choice.
Well, actually, again, this is a podcast, but you don't have a beard. And
No, or tattoos.
Or tattoos.
tattoos.
I have an
So
idea for a
I
tattoo.
know, so,
Yeah, I can give you a beer.
really?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Sure,
So
yeah.
Dick
Sure,
with
yeah.
a beard,
And tattoos.
absolutely. Dick with a bearded, tattooed dick, that can be
Oh, easy
the avatar.
I want my avatar to look like Devo, though. So just saying.
So anyway, my point is that like we can narrow that so that it's really narrow. But as Dick was saying, at the end of the day, the brewer chooses what to do and what not to do.
Mm-hmm.
So you can go, okay, this is what the market's saying, even if it's super narrow. But you know what? We're not going to touch this because this is sacrosanct. And
Yeah.
I think that is really important. But I also think even if something's sacrosanct, you should know, like, I want to be aware if I love this beer, I'm going to brew this. It doesn't matter what. Like,
Yeah.
my wife said here, you know what? We need to brew this beer because she's English and blah, blah, blah. And she wanted an English bitter that was not going to sell. But you know what? She's put up so much. I was like, it doesn't matter.
You're
It doesn't
doing this,
matter
yeah.
what the AI says.
Yeah.
We're doing this, yeah.
That's a good illustration.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? I'm going to brew this beer.
Yep.
I should know, though, that, you know what? I need to do this on the 3-barrel.
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah,
right?
that's a really good point. I mean, honestly, there's a lot of reasons that people brew beer, and some are to make your English better, to make your Kolsch or whatever it is. Like, so you can have it all the time, but it's not always like the beer that's gonna sell. So.
Yeah. Well, I think the 21st Amendment beer here is a good example of how you can also set parameters and train the responses so you don't get bullshit that doesn't count either. So it's Blood Orange IPA, right? Well, you've all seen feedback on some of the platforms on a beer like this that say like, oh, way too many strawberries in that beer, or just some random comment that has nothing to do with this beer, which again is what I think makes some brewers reluctant about this. But if as you said, Sully could have submitted the recipe and all of that, the AI would immediately know, okay, well, this person has zero input about this beer.
Yeah,
they're just angry about strawberries.
Yeah, and not only that, but like we're working with and we're talking to some platforms that are similar to Untapped, but not Untapped, where you can review and it's not public. And this is the beautiful thing about this. I think this is actually the antidote to all that Untapped hate that comes out. Is again, if people feel that they heard, you know, they just stop, right? Like, it's that angry customer, right? The worst thing you can do is ignore, and
it's the anonymous troll, and you're just anonymous, and you're being treated like you're anonymous. So
exactly, and if you can have something saying, "I heard you, understand, we're going to consider this. Thank you very much." That is the best way to. You know, to just stop that from escalating into something that is not helpful for anyone. So this is what we do. We heard you. Thank you very much. Now, will it change the beer? Probably not. Right? But it actually stops that from escalating into a place where you don't want to go.
So I got a question. So I guess when I opened the app and I got introduced to the questionnaire, I guess I thought in my head that you'd be able to just write down your opinion on the beer.
I thought that too.
Not necessarily like give it a rating, but just like, hey, I don't like how sweet this is. I don't like how hoppy it is, and kind of AI would kind of just take that all in and regurgitate whatever you're going to get in your email as a brewer. Do you have any plan to do that?
Yes. Yeah? So we absolutely prior to...
Can I just say quickly, you know what's funny to me about that? It's the exact type of test question that we all hated back in the day when it wasn't just multiple fucking choice and you had to write out your ideas. And now that we're adults, we're like, why don't you want my ideas?
I want you to write it out.
Oh, no.
It's going to help you more.
No. I like those questions.
You always did, of
more
course
than
you
that.
did.
Dick always did.
Partly because a lot of the time I hadn't done the work and I could fake it.
You could fake your way through it. Okay, fair point.
Yes.
Fair point. Yeah. Sorry, but
No. But like this is perfect. a perfect illustration. Like Dick, for those who don't know, like he's an author, and like the most obscure literary, text, Dick will know. Like, so he's really good with this sort of stuff. So he would love to be able to basically write a novel and have the AI to, but there are people, like, unfortunately or fortunately, not everybody's like Dick. They just want to like spend 8 seconds going boom, 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 boom.
But I like Miguel's question anyway. Is it possible?
It is possible. And as a matter of fact, this is what we're going to, we need to identify who wants to spend 8 seconds, who wants to spend 8 minutes.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things we can do, and again, we're super lucky in that I am just sort of the face, and in this case, the vocal cords of this company. But we've got the smartest AI guys, and one of them has said that what we need to do is be able to just put in your camera and say, "This is what I think," boom, 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 and have the AI sound it out, right? Mm-hmm. And we can so one of the this gentleman actually helped build AI for one of the major companies that I think it was Paramount. I think I can say that. Like, they're not a sponsor; they're not going to sue me. Yeah. Right? Who basically what they used to do is they used to do screen shows and then get people to fill out questionnaires. But people always lied because they were getting these free shows, and you don't want to say that sucked. Yeah. So instead, what they did is they built AI. So there's cameras, and it just
watches the people
and understood when they were engaged, when they were happy, when they were bored.
Right.
Super honest.
I think that's brilliant.
Brilliant. And it was much better.
Yeah.
And this is the sort of stuff that we will do for this.
Right.
Right now, what you're getting is a brand new prototype. But again, I've got really smart AI guys, like, this is where this needs to go.
Well, and I hope you don't mind the comparison, but if ChatGPT can write out a brilliant speech for me right now if I asked it to, then it certainly could take my feedback and turn it into good feedback. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
so
I really used, I didn't, I use ChatGPT. I pay for an app on my phone, and I really wanted to test the boundaries of it, and I
nice.
gave it parameters. I gave it what I wanted. I gave it my system parameters and all these things, and it just totally
nailed it.
Killed it.
It nailed it.
Nailed it. I mean, obviously, I didn't try the recipe, but I'm a brewer. From looking at it,
you can see that it's a good recipe.
It was a good recipe. They had,
wow.
They had water chemistry in there, and it had a knockout volume. It had everything.
Heck yeah.
Broken down, and it kind of
Can I just say?
It's a little scary, sure.
Can I just say, the scary thing about that is that what ChatGPT trains the model on is everything. So all the rubbish that we've been talking about is there. And so what I think we need to do, and what I'm hoping to do with Deep Liquid, is train it on things that are specific to us. So like I said, we could overweight people drinking at the Hop Grenade because we know that they're educated clientele. It's not all the rubbish. So as good as that is, it's basically, junk in, junk out.
Yeah.
And where ChatGPT is getting better and better at screening out the rubbish will get in, right? What we are doing is ensuring that there's no rubbish coming in.
Yeah.
And I think that is when we will get the best results.
Yeah, that's helpful. And then, like we said earlier, it's all being done anyway. It's all being, your beer's being judged and ruled on and starred and not starred anyway. So why not have it a platform that gives that back to you? Just like everything else. Google's not, I love Google for so many reasons, but it's not giving shit back to me. I showed my girlfriend once her map. I was like, oh, you don't know where you went? Here you go. Just look at your map history. Google knows everywhere you went for the last 10 years. Everywhere.
It's not
giving that back to you.
No. It's not giving it back to you, but it's giving it back to everyone else who will pay for it.
Right.
That is my point. Like, if you think, and I think what you were saying is like, oh, this is stressful. I don't want my, the brewer's like, oh, I don't want to be judged and so on and so forth. Like, this is happening.
Yeah.
What you need to be able to do is control it. So whereas, Google, and they're sucking up all this data and then giving it to everybody else, what we are doing is saying, no, take control.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
This is why our tagline is democratizing AI. Take control. This is your data. You control it. You do with it to create something that you want,
Yeah.
not what somebody wants you to buy, which is what's happening now.
Right.
Your tagline should be "Stop being an arrogant brewer."
That too. Yeah, that's only the cool
could be
kids
the
can
by-
handle.
that
You know
could be
who
the
won't?
byline.
You know who won't hear that or understand it? All the arrogant brewers. They'll be like, "What's that stupid line?"
No. We
But
brew
it's a
good
great
beer.
line.
We brew quality beer. Yeah.
Are we going to evaluate the 21A beer?
Do we? Yeah, why not? We got time to do that, and let's do them both quickly. It's a quick survey anyway, isn't it?
I just mean the brewers who participated should get the
there.
attention.
Yeah. So I'm starting again, and then we're doing the Brew Free or Die Blood Orange IPA first here. And I started the other one, so I'm going to let somebody else start this time. How about you, Teresa? What do you think? You want me to read the description real quick first?
Sure.
What to expect from the 2-1A Brew Free or Die Blood Orange IPA. Brewed like their original Brew Free or Die, this beer has an abundance of fresh blood orange puree and a twist of citrusy dry hops. It's refreshingly different. As Abe would say, whatever you are, be a good one. All right, what do you think, Teresa, on question 1? How would you improve this beer's appearance?
Oh, I mean, there's very little to improve here.
It's damn near perfect, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's got
it
a
is
nice,
kind of perfect.
Nice head, nice carbonation, even after sitting in the glass for 15 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, honestly,
The color's
some of
pretty.
these beers, like I built the brewery drinking this beer. Like my association with this beer is so positive, it's hard to
It's a great beer.
knock it down.
So, yeah, what about you? Did it change the appearance at all?
No, it's
yeah.
gorgeous
No.
beer.
Perfectly clear.
Perfect.
So we're just not skipping it. We're just calling it perfect and going to the next question. The aromatics, which, Devo, you mentioned like right when we started. You're like, oh, no, that's the blood orange.
For sure.
It is.
You could figure that out when it's sitting on the
they're
table.
there. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, but
Unmistakable.
so my criticism is that the aromatics are a little candified.
Yeah.
It's a little sugary
Yeah, it's sweet.
and lollipoppy.
Yeah.
And so my options here are decrease or increase. So I guess I'd say decrease by 40%, something like
Yeah.
that.
I would say decrease or even change up your utilization. You know, maybe you're going grapefruit heavy on cold side. Maybe try hot side.
Mhm.
So you kind of don't get so much of that artificial grapefruit.
In your face, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, too much puree. That's what it's going to do.
And,
Okay,
and,
yeah.
and this is where AI needs to get better because, what you were talking about, hot side or cold side, 99% of the people would not put that in there.
Well, yeah.
But you know what? This is where it will go.
Sure.
right? And we need to understand.
Do you think this is on the hot side?
No, I think this is all cold side.
I think so too.
100%.
Yeah.
And I think it's under attenuated, and so you're leaving a lot of that puree still in the beer, and that's just kind of what they've grown.
And not
to do.
all blood orange puree is
Of course.
equal.
Mhm.
I used to make a blood orange beer quite
See,
a lot.
I got to say, just like not as somebody who owns a brewery, like one, I'm super excited as somebody who owns a brewery. If I was getting this sort of feedback from Miguel and Dick,
Yeah.
I would be so excited to go, okay, we need to pay attention to this. We need to find a way as like from an app developer, a tech developer to go, okay, how do we, because there's so much amazing knowledge here.
Yeah.
How do we take this, right? And this is sort of what I'm the whole point of this exercise.
Sure.
Is how do we,
Well,
not just, we talked about filtering out the rubbish, but like this is gold.
right.
How do we get this?
Well, this is how the Brewing Network exists for 18 years. So what we do is we start a new podcast where Dick and Miguel just evaluate beers, but like full bore. I've always been a little like subtle about it on the show. Like if I didn't like a beer, I would just move on. But no, it would have to be a full bore, full speed ahead, and then the transcript. The AI just makes a transcript of it, internalizes it, whatever it fucking does. I don't know, Denim, and then spits out some good info.
I'll
man.
get a pied à terre in Concord.
Yeah, there we go, man. We're ready. I'm really loving this idea, to be honest with you. Okay. Well, I love all that big upfront aroma in the nose. I do agree that it's a little sweet, but because the question isn't letting me do that, I'm just going to reduce it by like 1 or 2.
I scaled it down 40%, but I think it works better in the flavor.
This is again where this is like, because I did love but Dick's absolutely right. It is a little candied, right? And so now I'm like, you're right. Like, do I scale this down? But I think what this does is generally give very clean feedback because we don't have the brewers here. But what I think we do need to do is, and we absolutely can do this, is find a way to identify where you are in sort of, are you a brewer? Are you a first time, right? And I think that is important because if we know, like, you know, Dick, who's judged, you know, is like judged, you know, the best beers for a long time.
Right. Yeah.
If we know that he's doing this, like, okay, we overweight this.
Yeah.
Massively.
Well, and you could gather that when somebody signs up for it.
Absolutely.
You know, just a couple of questions about their beer background.
You could also see, Dan, I'm starting to get why you're so excited about this. I really am. Because the AI can be so smart, you also could ask questions like, once you've gathered a bunch of feedback about this beer, do you find this aroma to be candy sweet or fresh and new? Right? The AI is going to eventually figure out how to throw questions back that have to do with previous feedback.
Absolutely.
And the reason I think that would be important is if 1 out of 6 of us decided it was candy sweet, okay, I might not change anything. But if 5 out of 6 of us answered that next question, actually, because it didn't get triggered until Dick brought it up, you'd go, oh yeah, actually it is. Well, now you might start to look at
AI
whatever.
learns.
It does.
Yeah.
That is the beauty of it. AI, absolutely, it does learn.
Yeah.
And you know, if it learns, it can teach us. You just have to be open to, you know.
I think that even like having that, I mean, it promotes the conversation.
Yes.
So if you have that data, you have access to that data, then like we see, okay, even if it's just these 4 questions, well, you know, what does that mean? Then like over 1,500, then Miguel and I go back and he's like, hey, I think we should maybe drop the hot side charge and increase the cold side. You know what I mean? And it starts that conversation.
Right.
And so it doesn't, don't necessarily, like, that's part of the benefit for the brewers, right? Like, it doesn't necessarily I don't necessarily need the specifics because that's part of what my job is.
Right.
Is to know how to interpret that data and then translate it into the quality of the beer, right? Like, and so it's just, like, that's where we still have creative license and where we're engaging in conversation.
Creative license, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I'm sitting here thinking as you're talking, like, did we give you any meaningful information when we were drinking the 1500? We mostly said, I mean, I remember I said, really drinkable beer.
Right.
I like the Amarillo balance more, you know, the Simcoe was more in the background, which I like, all that stuff. I'm hoping that the data we provided, which is just not many points, was useful.
Yeah.
Well, even in the conversation, the first thing, and I think, Miguel probably said, like, clarity, that was one of the first things we were like, you know what I mean? And so he'd go back and go, like, okay, what was this batch? Like, I just know him enough to know, like,
go start looking,
look up this batch and see, like, why it's not as clear as, like, what we would expect to have it be. And then,
okay, yeah. He's already thinking about it. Yeah. He already knows it. Yeah.
Well, in judging so many styles, chill haze is allowed.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I mean, the slightest even feedback, you know, especially when it's a beer that you're super familiar with, you're going to take that and then start a conversation. You're going to engage in a conversation. I mean,
well, and as the sample size gets bigger, like, you're going to get more valuable feedback.
Yeah.
And the other thing you said is about starting a conversation. So I had an idea, and again, this is exactly why we're doing it. This is actually why we picked the Hop Grenade, because what you do is you basically bring a community together to try to grow the community, right?
Yeah.
And you had a couple of patrons at the bar just talking about how they reviewed the beers.
Mm-hmm.
I did this, I did that, right?
Yeah.
And what I was thinking is, like, that's what we need to do, like, create a little community. So there's an airline, I can't remember, where you could choose to watch a movie with someone. And I was like, oh, that's really cool, because right? You just want to share an experience.
Yeah,
It's real
yeah.
weird though,
Was your
'cause it's like
neighbor?
even a random person.
Right.
No, it's
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Well,
Or
do you
there's
like
something,
text
you can be
them
like, I
or?
wanna watch a movie
So
with
it's like,
seat,
so
like,
Really?
it's like a face?
Oh, that is
Like,
interesting.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, is that what
I-
You can be like, I want to watch a movie with seat 36 seat.
That's fascinating.
That is really weird. That's weird, but I can understand where, because I did it once where I was like, oh yeah, you're like, we can watch the same movie together because you want to share an experience, right?
Yeah.
Huh.
And this is what we can do. Like, and I was actually thinking that's what we need. We need to have like, X amount of people here, like all talking about a beer, and that, can go to like, because sometimes it's really good to be at home, like giving clean feedback. But honestly, the wonderful thing about beer is it is a communal experience. It brings people together, and we can build that in as well.
Yeah.
Well, I mentioned earlier, did this provide the numerical data? Like, how many responses did it get? And I think that's really important too. I mean, like to put together the information that we've provided on each of these beers. That's only 6 of us.
Yeah.
If it's 548 responses, people need to know that.
That's something. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
if
true.
somebody's batting 800 with 6 at bats,
yeah.
I mean, that's meaningless.
That's like
No.
statistical.
Casey Schmidt
Yeah.
did that, and he got
Yeah.
sent back to the minors.
Size matters.
Yeah.
All right. Then, just because I got to get us through these beers, the bar's going to close. Even though I own it, I can probably keep it open. How would you improve this beer's flavor? This is the less bitter, more bitter.
Well, see, once again, we were talking about the fruit characteristic of it, and that doesn't really get to it.
Yeah.
So
it's hard to answer. And also, because even though there's the sweetness from the puree, there's the bitterness from the grapefruit and, of course, the hops. So I don't want it more bitter to counteract the sweetness. So I'm just going to leave this one alone on my end.
I want more bitter.
Okay. How many points you going?
3.
3 points. All right. Anybody else want
I
to try?
think the beer is good for what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I sorry, like no. Obviously we're right next door.
Your neighbors, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I drink. We drink each other's things. Like they come over to our house. They try our stuff. I talk to them.
Yeah.
They give me their input. And it goes back and forth. It does not have any fermentation defects.
Yeah.
In my head, it's just like a percentages thing. It's like, maybe not throw a whole that last drum of grapefruit puree.
Gotcha.
But for
Yeah.
me, using a specialty ingredient like blood orange, you want it to marry with the hops. You want there to be this relationship between the bitterness and the fruitiness and whatever else. And that's why I'm saying I want more.
Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely a club you over the head rather than hint of. But I can see also there's probably 1 million people in the world who would be like
Of course, yeah.
more blood orange, more cowbell.
Yeah,
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's one of the hard things about this, right?
That's what this is all about.
Yeah.
It's a tool to figure out what you want to do.
And then it goes back to the nuance of the brewer and the brewery, right? Where
Right.
they're like, okay, well, if we have like equal, some people are like, yeah, we want more bitter, and some people are like, yeah, we want it on the sweeter side. Then we as a brewery get to decide what we're going to do because it's still our
Right. But if you end up
Dev is-
with an overwhelming volume of data that says more bitter, you might listen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
might listen.
Yeah.
And Dev's absolutely right. So, what I didn't even want to say because I didn't generally meet the ratings were similar to Dick, and I was like, I'm not going to contradict Dick, right? But I think what this
Feel free.
does,
You should.
I think what this does is it gives you that. Well, okay, the market is saying this, like, do we want to follow the market? Like, and this is what like. Well, you need to know that regardless of what Dick or Miguel says. So, like, it was interesting hearing Dick and Miguel, right, saying this is what we think, and I absolutely understand both of their standpoints. But what you need to also then is this is what the market says. This is what the volume of your drinkers say.
Yeah.
And if you can put that into the equation, then the brewers make the best decision.
Sure. And let's not forget all of the other traditional data that you should also be looking at. So if the market in this voting, in this evaluation from Deep Liquid is saying that 1,500 needs to change this, and that, but sales are up astronomically, well, then you're really going to question what to change.
Yeah.
But if sales are down and the market is showing that, it becomes easier to listen to one data point over the other data point. So you're still going to just use this against your traditional data points, aren't you?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right, and then I go back to. Sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead, no.
Then I go back to one of my central tenets of altering a recipe. If I can change something in a beer that I think makes it better, and nobody notices, I've really done my job.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Yeah.
So my only comment is like, I work at Drake's full time. I have a little part-time job. I work at the Rake Admiral Malting.
Yeah.
Out in Alameda. I deal with a lot of Alameda people drinking a lot of these beers. I try every single beer, and I tell the manager what I think about them. And I know if there's off flavors, if there's this, if there's that.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess my question is, how would you combat people that see oxidation as something that they would like? Are we just are we just conforming to like creating oxidized beer because that's what they want?
Emulating the imports.
Yeah. Like there's numerous beers, that come through the Rake, and I try them, and I'm like, oh, this is fully diacetyl. Oh, this is and people love it. Who am I to tell them they're wrong? I'm not going to tell them, they don't know what I'm talking about. I can tell them there's acetaldehyde in this. They don't really care.
Right.
They're going to drink the beer.
Yeah.
Well, I think what it is about training the model, right? So if you, say, you like caramel flavors in your beer, like, great. Like, if that is not what you want in your beer, the AI will filter that out, right?
Right.
So, it can do that.
So we can program in off flavors.
You can program in off flavors, like to say, here, these are the flavors we do want to do. What I think is going to be interesting in how we identify who's willing and able to identify those flavors, right? Who's willing to, say, spend the additional 60 seconds to identify, I get caramel, I get, these sort of flavors. Mm-hmm. So this is what we're identifying.
And
but
if somebody knows enough to identify acetaldehyde, they should have their day in court too.
Yeah, that's right. Well, as long as their identification isn't, I really love green apples and I'm glad it's in this beer, because then they don't know how to identify it. They just know they love green apples.
Well, if God didn't make little green apples.
Well, I mean, like, okay, if somebody, like, what would be great is, like, right now, and I'm not going to mention any programs, but there's certain, like, reviews, like, where you go, okay, here, you've reviewed X amount, you've got a badge, right?
Yeah.
And that badge means all you've done is talked about X amount of it. Doesn't mean you know anything about it.
And in this country, that's all we can give them.
Yeah.
The little American Airlines wings.
That's
But
right.
in this app, what we could do is identify people who actually know something about beer.
And that is very unique.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
And actually, if you can, that's a good way to sell it to brewers as well.
Yeah.
Right, we
Because
can.
if you've got, say 10 people of the respondents who have done professional level judging or whatever else, they're like, oh, okay, well, I've got, some savvy people
Well,
here.
more than that-
Or I've got people who are belong to a homebrew club or something like that.
We can do all that, but also what we can do is we can give Justin a code to say, hey, listen, I know you know your beers. Or, right, here, I'm going to give you this. Basically, I've identified you as somebody who knows their beers. Yeah,
that's what I was trying to think of.
So a badge, right, isn't just a badge that says you've done X amount. It's a badge.
It's a badge of knowledge.
And knowledge.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm hesitating to use the word influencer.
Exactly. Exactly.
You're an influencer.
No, but influencers just get paid to say, right, this is an influencer who actually has earned that
Baseline of knowledge.
because they have a badge, right? And you could just say, you know what, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to. So we know somebody coming from the Hop Grenade who has this badge, boom, overweighted.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So there's so much we can do here to, address those issues. Because right now, the platforms right now take every input and it is all valued the same. Whether you know nothing or whether you're dick who knows.
Sure. And that goes with everything. It's not just the beer review sites. It goes for the Hop Grenades Google reviews. It goes for the Yelp reviews. It goes for, and there's power users on there, but there's still no weeding it out. Hell, there's such a
overwhelming, and you're like,
Totally.
And all of, like, you know, I mean, for me, I'd rather see the numbers.
Yeah.
than all of, you know, I don't care if it was a sunny day and the, you know, kids were over, like, loud, and there was a dog that almost bit me, and the nachos were great, but this, you know, they
You're right.
This, you know what I mean? There's like a lot of like extra fluff, or it's just
Well,
painful.
I would also,
and that's how Denim sort of started the show, the first segment, by saying at the very least, the one thing AI is good at is sifting through data, and we are not. We don't want to. You and I don't read all that shit either. It would take us a decade to do that, or seconds.
I mean, one thing I find annoying about so many of the beer rating review anything. Well, not just beer reviewing, you know, rating anything is that, you know, people like to create sort of a persnickety persona for themselves or whatever else. I mean, fuck the persona.
Yeah.
You know, I like the anonymity of the data that's provided to this platform.
Yep.
But I feel like the people who provide the data need to get something out of it, not necessarily like,
But they can get it without
the
providing
social interaction, but like they need to get a benefit that is direct to them, or like some kind of connection with other people.
Yeah.
Because, you know, just knowing that your feedback went to the brewer is not necessarily, to me, it's not enough.
No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, I see your point.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. So in Australia, like I said, we can give them free beer, which, you know, is really good. But it's actually good for sales as well, because how this currently works in Australia is we will give you a voucher. So if you've reviewed X amount of, this, say, the Hop Grenade, we can send you back. And then if you give a free beer, the brewery gives that back to you when you order from us, right? So it is much cheaper for us, a brewery, to do this than to send a sales guy over here, try this beer, right?
Yeah.
So that is really easy for us in Australia. It's harder to do here.
Yeah, because of the laws, yeah.
Because of the laws. But I still think it is a really good way for us to engage and generate demand and reward customers in a really seamless way that is actually cheaper than having people running around you know, in cars trying to find parking. And so it's actually a sales mechanism as well, right? It just, again, here we need to...
Well, that's one thing we need to continue coming back to, because we're trying to sell beer.
Yep. All right, I got to get us through one more beer, and then we're going to finish this up. We're just going to have to do more Deep Liquid shows, really. We're about to have the Sidegate Brewery 100. It's a crushable hazy IPA with Matueka and Citra to celebrate their 100th batch made at their Concord Brew House, which is just about 2 blocks away from me. Tasting notes of melon, underpine, nectarine, key lime, and black tea, which, having already tasted this beer, I think is an excellent description. They did a good job. They spent some time on that. This is the only hazy beer, the only hazy IPA in our selection tonight. And then, of course, the first question is, how would you improve the beer's appearance? So, you know, for me, I don't know that I would change it. There are hazy beers that I would say that I would have voted this clearer. I don't know that there's ever been a hazy beer I would have voted cloudier, but they probably exist. I'm leaving this right where it is. Dick?
Yeah. The only thing, my beef with a lot of hazy beers is lack of carbonation and head retention and all that stuff.
Sure.
I'd like a little more of that, but there isn't in this particular questionnaire parameter.
Survey,
that's not offered.
So I will say we did have head retention.
I remember seeing it.
Yeah, exactly. And we took it out because, again, you know...
I think it's tasty.
It's also been sitting here for a half hour, by the way.
Yeah.
I think it's super tasty. I mean, it could have used a little
leave
bit
it there.
of protein content, sure, but I mean, it's a very solid beer.
All right, next question then is to how would we improve the beer's aromatics? This one, and I don't know exactly what, but I'm definitely going to increase. I want something more. And part of the increase for me is that nothing really sticks out either. It's quite... It's one note. So I want to increase it, but I don't know what to increase. And, of course, we're not asking that in this survey.
I like the note. I get an orangey aroma that I find pretty pleasant. It's not complex.
Well, it's interesting, again, because I had a chat to the brewer a couple of days ago, and like, I wouldn't change this only because he was very clear that he wanted this to be a sessionable hazy, right? Something that wasn't too... And so for that reason, if you don't want it, like, in your face, I was like, okay, you've nailed that.
What's the ABV on this?
I think it's 6.
I'm not sure.
6.5. And you know what? That's the other thing that we used to have on this, so we will put back on there, because that makes a huge difference. Right?
I mean, of course, you've already, by having
6.4.
shared that information, you've sort of muddied the waters in terms of an objective response. But I get that. You know, it's got, like so many super hazy, really thick IPAs, it's not dead on the palate. It does sort of move on. It has enough bitterness to do that.
Yep.
Although, you know, that's one of my beefs, too, with many hazy IPAs. I like proper bitterness. But
Right.
maybe that violates the style.
And again, my review was colored by my discussion with the brewer, but you know, we were having this discussion that came from San Francisco where it was like 72 degrees, and came here it was
95,
102 degrees. I was like, what the? It's like, oh wow, this is. It's like, no, this is normal. Anyway, I was like, this is perfect for this weather. It's like, yeah, that's what we built it for. You know, easy drinking, not too in your face. You can have a couple. I was like, yo, nailed it.
Yep. All right, so
Well,
question. Go ahead. Yeah.
I was just going to say, I mean, it's fine for a hazy beer to not be in style if it makes it more drinkable. Like, I'm with you. Like,
Totally.
in style hazy beer is often, like, totally not drinkable to me.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
I mean, it's maybe
Well,
for
because-
West Coast kids. but-
Exactly.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Because the majority of people, I mean, New England style IPAs and hazies, they are a different category.
They are,
Think
yep.
about it. Like, you know, a lot of people, like, they do New England style. Some people do hazies. Like, it just depends. I mean, it's really your like your hop amounts.
Yeah, Cellar Maker has West Coast hazies now. They
Yeah,
call them
and
all the
I like
time.
that
So
classification.
you do,
Like,
okay.
Yeah, because you know that you're going to get some.
Gives you a parameter.
You're gonna get some bitterness.
You're going to get some bitterness,
And
and
you-
it's not going to be like overwhelmingly like thick.
And it's probably
Yeah.
going to have some bubbles
it's
on
going
it.
to have some bubbles.
And
yeah.
we do deserve credit in California.
Yep.
You know,
For everything, let's be honest.
Vermont created the hazy, but we've been doing work over here.
We made it so you could drink it.
We're trying, man.
That's a good point.
We're selling pints. You know?
Yep. All right. How would you improve the beer's flavor? This is the third question. This is about the bitterness. And again, you know, hazies are just across the board. I guess that's the cool thing. You got to just be about this beer.
As
Just
always,
this one.
I'm going to say, you know,
More
a
bitter.
little bit more.
I'm going to go a little more too. Not by much. I'm going to give it a 2, a +2 on that. Anybody going more? No.
No, no,
Yeah, I wouldn't go more.
no. It's got enough of a skid.
pretty
but,
good with it.
You know, just for
Yeah,
you
given
know,
I know that it's been meant to be sessionable. I'm,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it is
It
that
doesn't stick
Yeah.
around
for
on
sure.
your palate,
Yeah.
you know, it's, yeah.
And then we get to the beer's mouthfeel. And this is a good question for a hazy. You know, whether you want it thinner or fuller.
I think it nails it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's right on the
Go with
palate
that.
where I want it to be.
I think this, if you wanted to, like, maybe say, like, carbonation or something like that, you could address it here. But,
Yeah.
but I think that...
I would say so too. Yeah.
yeah.
And that would lift it just a little more off
It
the
would.
palate.
Exactly.
And it might make it even... And, again, it's been sitting here, so, you know, like...
Yeah. True. Yep.
Some of that has bled off, but that would make it even more quaffable.
Yeah,
in
no, I agree with you
degree.
entirely. And we did have, again, carbonation. I think what I've got from this, and this is super helpful, is we need to be able to identify who's willing to spend, 30 seconds, who's willing to spend 3 minutes on
If
questions.
I'm only asked to spend 30 seconds, I'm not going to bother.
Yeah. But that's you.
That's
Right.
me.
Yeah.
That's me.
And even on top of that, and in this beer, even if 50 Dick Cantwells did the 60, 90 seconds on this beer, I think it's one where they nailed what they were looking for.
Yes.
It's because you sort of described it to us. Even reading the description, I think I would take all that information and still go, nah, I'm good. I think it's okay. Do you see what I mean there? Like,
Yeah.
and this is why the you can take the data or leave the data.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And if you really got the beer you were going for, okay, unless the information is overwhelmingly saying +5, +5, +5, I'd leave this alone.
Well, we've all just spent an hour and a half evaluating these beers, and
Yeah.
we're still loving it.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
But I think the real thing is like we enjoy like this.
You're fine.
You know what we've just done now. I mean, I enjoyed that. That was fun, right?
Yep,
Like
absolutely.
And it was sort of fun because also it's really fun because I've got the brewers right next to me,
Yeah,
listening, and going, "Oh, okay, that's really cool." That's what this does,
Mm-hmm.
right? Now, granted, they might not be physically next to you, but this
They're
goes
gonna
to
see.
them. They're going to see it.
They're going to listen.
And this is what makes this community great.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I made a whole career out of this, Denim. It's your turn now. Taking feedback, listening to brewers, giving it back to brewers. This is a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to seeing what the next iterations are. I'm looking forward to a week's worth of data from the Hop Grenade. We're going to keep promoting it because we've got all this beer on tap for until they're gone, really. We're calling it AI Beer Week because you need a gimmick, don't you? You need a name of at the Hop Grenade. Yeah, heck yeah. One
Before
of
we
my
go,
faves.
as a teaser, because I know you want to talk about it, well, you're not going to be able to talk about it.
Yeah.
But the AI bar. So what we are doing is we've developed an AI bar where you can basically review all these beers. It'll understand what you want, and then basically create a QR code. So if this is one beer, one bar, one tap, and you scan your QR code, and you'll go, oh, okay, this is what you like. So we've done this for a stout bar, and yeah, it was amazing, and you don't even have to try beer. So we did this.
It's basic. Can I dumb it down a little bit just for the listeners too? Because I had trouble understanding what an AI bar was. It's a very advanced kegerator.
Yep.
With multiple kegs in it that will take your preferences after you reviewed a bunch of beers, and then put together the beer it thinks you'll like based on the selection it has inside of it.
Well, yeah, not just selections, but like with the stout. So what we did, it wasn't even beer. We had chocolates. We had peanut butter, Reese's peanut butter cups. We had Milk Duds. We had coffee coated chocolate. We had Rocky Road, and you just rated those chocolates. And we had stouts, which basically bit different bases, higher alcohol, lower alcohol, more viscosity, less viscosity, and then also, raspberry and peanut butter and so on. So you could create /dose
But they were based on beers.
Yes, they were based on beers.
So
on individual kegs of beers.
It wasn't just crazy ingredients that were going to go into them. There were beers that were based on those ingredients.
Right.
And that people stated their preferences for them and have put together a custom blend for each of them.
Correct. But
Yeah.
what they did in this instance was not try any of those beers. They just tried chocolates.
Yeah,
so
I
we
get it.
understood their flavor palette, right? If you hated peanuts, but you like raspberry, we knew how to
Understood,
create. And so many people said, I don't drink beer. And then so many people said, I definitely don't drink stouts, but like, oh my goch, I like this. And I
Sure,
was able
yeah.
to say, well, yeah, you've only ever drank a stout that was made for 1 million people. You've never drank Christina's stout. This is created for you. And they were like, wow.
Yeah.
And what we're doing there is, again, just appealing to that TikTok generation where they need that immediate, like, this is what I've done, this is the result. Whereas what we're doing here is this will go to Drake's, and it might be a long, slow process where you won't immediately identify where your input is.
Yeah.
Right? But in this instance, it's immediate.
Sure.
And what we've done is what I found with my brewery is like they immediately identify with my beer. They're like, wow, this brewery can, create something that they really listen. So
Another realm that works really well with this is like sour beers.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got a cucumber one, and you've got a citrus one, and you've got I don't know what else.
Maybe one that's more acidic.
Yeah.
Maybe one that's not. Yeah.
And then you can put together a custom blend based on all those things.
Sure.
But I think that's a subject for a future podcast.
yeah, well, it becomes like Spotify.
Well, the cool thing about that, literally a future podcast here, is that we're hoping to have an event like that here one day at the Hop Grenade when this particular robot can make it across the pond and hang out with us over here. So there's more to talk about with that.
You have to invite us.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, you're
done.
invited.
You're
That's
invited.
a done deal. Yeah. You can go to deepliquid.ai and learn more about everything we've been talking about here today. And I want to thank all of our brewers for participating. I'd like to call you brave souls, but I actually just think you're smart souls for just getting involved with more data, more information. And so, Teresa, thank you. Devo, thank you. Miguel, thank you. I want to thank Sean from the 21st Amendment. I want to thank Kevin and Paul from Sidegate. I want to thank Brendan from Liquid Gravity, all of you who agreed to participate in this experiment. And I'm excited to see where it grows and hopefully to taste some beers with some changes from this.
I think we're brave anyway.
You're right. Just for making it to Concord, you mean, or because there's that.
For working in this industry.
Okay, there you're right. All right, thanks again to our sponsors, More Beer. Go check them out at morebeer.com. Thanks to our sponsors, the 21st Amendment, beersmith.com. Get your free 30-day trial of Beersmith brewing software. And go to Williams Brewing, too, williamsbrewing.com, and they can help you out with all of your brewing needs as well. We can't be here without our sponsors or you. Thank you for all your listenership and support over the years. We'll see you next time on the session. Thank you. Hang in there. Take care of yourselves and your beer.
The Session is a production of the Brewing Network and brought to you by More Beer. Check them out at morebeer.com. Find more content and live video of this show on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Brewing Network. For sponsorship opportunities and information, please reach out to advertising@thebrewingnetwork.com. To reach our hosts, contact feedback@thebrewingnetwork.com.